was absolutely incredible.
So I'll give you a couple of Cinco de Mayo, where Cinco de Mayo is bigger in this country than it is in Mexico, and in this town where we have a vibrant community in South Omaha. They do not celebrate until the weekend. But I saw the list of what's happening on Friday.
Mm-hmm.
Might not make it off of 24th Street on Friday. All right, welcome in everybody, Gary and Matt, with Jimmy to kick off another week. The sports were great this weekend.
Incredible.
The playoffs were good.
Yeah, they're more than good. They're great.
1.6 seconds and a dream.
Yeah.
Last night, 2 Game 7s where the toughest lead to protect in all the sports is a 2-goal lead in hockey.
Absolutely.
It is proven. It's got stats behind it. And you had 2 back-to-back Game 7s where you had the team that had 2-goal lead ends up not being the winner. But last night, an incredible comeback by Winnipeg. Good for that town.
Yeah,
because
they need it.
It's a not very large, but they have embraced the Jets, and the Jets are the President's Trophy winners, and so there's that curse. And they were able to overcome it last night, and they got it to overtime. And then you said, you know what? All the Jet fans that were standing for the entire overtime period, and then said, you know what? Let's do it again. So they went into the second overtime, and on of all things, a deflection.
Well, you know that's how that was going to end. I mean, watching that game, you knew that this was going to be a silly goal. It wasn't going to be one of those really pretty, tic-tac-toes. It was just going to be who gets the bounce, who's got the fast break or the odd man rush, who capitalizes on that opportunity. Incredible stat here. Winnipeg Jets in their just playoff history are 2-25 when trailing at any point in a playoff game. That's awful. Okay, at any point where you're down 1 goal and you're 2-25 in 27 games, for them to pull that off, and also too, it's a franchise that has been through a lot. It's just a weird history in terms of where the team has been and the movement of the team and the interest of the team. But you were, 3-1. You're thinking this game's absolutely over for them to overcome that. Absolutely incredible. And then the other Game 7, Dallas and Colorado, thrilling in its own different way for Mikko Rantanen, who got traded from the Colorado Avalanche to the Dallas Stars, has a hat trick. One of the best revenge games, period, end of story in sports.
Isn't he great in Game 7s in his career?
I think he had a couple of Game 7 goals for Colorado.
I actually thought of Matt on Saturday. All these nice hats just being tossed on the ice. Being tossed away. It's that's a $40 hat.
That was cool. I don't, like I said, I don't like the whole throwing of the hats onto the ice because I think it's stupid. Like, why would you get rid of your very nice hat? No, you're giving away money. At the same
because they collect. So most places, this is what they do with the Penguins. They collect the hats and they donate them.
Yeah.
Now, I don't know if you want to wear a used hat.
We've covered that.
But they do. They will periodically. I remember the game ops person was saying periodically, somebody will be like, "Oh, damn, I threw my hat on the ice. That's my favorite."
Exactly.
That is my favorite Pens hat that I'm superstitious about. And so they will say, "Hey, can I get that back?" But they scoop them up and they put them in a bin. That's a great tradition.
I've always thought,
bring an extra hat. Tuck it in your pants.
Okay,
well,
now that's
my
okay.
thing. What if it is my lucky hat and I just throw it out there and I'd get really, really mad about it? I would be. I just think it's.
You have a hat on reserve.
I would never throw my hat onto the ice if my team had a hat.
I think it's a great tradition.
Now, I'll say this.
No other sport does that.
Instead of donating the hats, I've always thought my cool idea is this: you pick up all the hats and then you put them at an entrance. Okay.
Pick up your hat.
No, you don't pick up your hat. You just pick up a hat. You just grab. No, I think
we covered that again.
You just grab a hat and then you put it in the dishwasher because that's how you wash the hats, right? You put them in the dishwasher, you wash it, and then you have a hat. I think that'd be cool because you're like, I got this hat. I got this hat from the hat trick bin on the way out of this game because this guy had a hat trick. I think that would be cool. Instead of donating them. Not that I don't like charity or anything, but
I think
it would add to it.
We did. By the way, Paul Bissonnette played for the team that I did the play-by-play for when he was in the minors.
Oh,
he never had a hat trick. They gave. We had a really good player named Sean Collins who was from Maine, who played at Maine. He had 4 or 5 hat tricks, and he would take the hats.
Just for himself?
Yeah, they give him the bag full of hats.
He only makes so much money.
He would take them. Yeah. I think he kept them as a tribute or
that'd
something
be cool.
like that.
How many hats do you think he's got? I mean, if he had 4 or 5, probably 100 hats.
I don't know. He was he would always be walking out with a bag, and you'd think, oh man, he's either been called up or he has been waived. No, he's got a bunch of hats from his hat trick. But the sports was also great from the standpoint of the college baseball and college softball around here. It was a good weekend. And Omaha made noise.
Yes.
And they made headlines.
Yes.
The Oracle of Omaha shocked everyone on Saturday.
Yeah, way to steal the thunder.
At the downtown Chai and said, end of the year, I'm out at the age of 94. Monster story. Omaha is on the map as the Oracle of Omaha. I got CNBC on here because usually this morning they have a long extended interview with him. I'll give Mr. Buffett credit. He's 94 years old, and that event, which by the way, thank you for coming to our town and spending a lot of money. But there's the thing about when you come to Omaha, okay, and you go to all the places that Buffett frequents. You go over to 55th and Farnham and take pictures in front of his house. You go to his McDonald's on Dodge Street here. You go to Gorat's. You go to Borsheim's. You go to his Dairy Queen.
Sure.
You go to NFM. Okay, you do all of that stuff. And thank you for spending money in our city.
Yeah.
Because we love when 40,000 of you come to our city and
painted in green, baby.
Hey, definitely the hotelers, because they make a lot of money. Them prices were jacked up. But you know what? There's locals that make money off Airbnbs.
Yeah.
But here's the thing. The next time you come to our fair city, and I would think next year they'll do it again. I don't know if 40,000 people will come to hear Greg Abel speak. But we have this thing in Omaha. We love our city. Since you were last here, we have 1 million people that live here. We have this thing in this city.
People always forget.
Hey, we might suck at driving. We may not know how to zipper merge, but here's the deal. We have these laws for pedestrians that when you can walk and can't walk, and you know what? Even though you're not from here,
oh my God,
you do have to follow those, because I can't tell you how many times Friday after leaving the studio, because I was over by NFM, I was a couple of places where it was clear that there were people that were in town because they wear the lanyard. The lanyard's a big thing.
Sure.
Okay. If you have the lanyard, you're thinking people on this past weekend,
they're at the Berkey event.
Yeah. You know what? When the light is green and it's my turn in a vehicle to drive, that doesn't mean that you can walk across the street and then, by God, take 5 minutes to get across the street with you and your 3 friends that are dressed head to toe in suits, and you got your lanyards on and you're just talking away. You know what? We are a real city that has real traffic laws for pedestrians. So all I ask is that the next time you come to our fair city and you spend a lot of money, just make sure that you follow the rules that are called when you're out there walking.
It's a bad combo.
When the light turns, when it has the little illuminated person that is walking, then that means you can walk. You know, when it has don't walk, that means don't walk.
So what is your policy on honking at those people? If you're at the green light and you're stopped in front of the green light and they're walking in front of you, what's your policy?
I did not have to do it myself, because there were other people in front of NFM on Friday morning that just let these people have it. And I was waiting for this guy to turn his lanyard, and that would have been like, oh, that's a gots to go situation, and this is going to be viral moment. But other people did it. But I just you
started honking, and Sir Paul McCartney walks out of the crowd.
Only thing of the weekend, but it's a big deal that the Oracle of Omaha is going to step down as the CEO at the end of the year, because he is the GOAT of investors. But at the age of 94, I do give him credit, because
he could come to the zone now and fill in.
Sure, that'd be great.
Yeah.
Well, I'm sure the first question would be, Warren, Nebraska athletics.
Yeah.
How come you're not the Phil Knight of Omaha?
What can we do?
But here's the thing about him on Saturday. So he sits there and he's answering questions.
Yeah.
And he's up there for 5 to 6 hours. He's 94 years old.
Incredible.
Now, anybody that's interacted with him recently, he has slowed down and he has a lot more assistance. I mean, this is a guy who, when they did the Bob Gibson statue out at Warner Park, Damon and I are doing a show, and we're in the back of the gift shop.
Okay.
We've got our own little table. The place is packed. There's Bud Selig is to our left, and we got all these dignitaries. And the door opens behind us, and there wasn't any way to come in and out, because if you opened up the door, you walked right into our back. Nice. Here comes Warren Buffett all by himself. Like, he did not have his security. Yeah,
Warren from Omaha.
So we had him on the air, and he only has security when now it's changed.
Sure.
But back then, and this is about 10 years ago when they did the Bob Gibson statue, he only had security when he was outside of Omaha. Now, he always had somebody with him.
Oh.
But in this case, he just showed up to Warner Park for the Bob Gibson statue because him and Bob had a very good relationship. Mm-hmm. He was just by himself. And I'm like, there is Warren Buffett. And he just wandered into the back and was just kind of like, I'm going to blend in. So
did you call him out? Were you like, hey, you got to get up here now?
We were like stunned.
Yeah.
We were like, okay, because you would think there'd be a security and then a PR person.
Sure.
He just got in his car and he just drove out to Warner Park for a Bob's statue ceremony. But
in his Toyota Camry.
If you've seen him around town or you've been at any events that he's been at, he's slowed down a little bit and has a little bit more assistance and he has a little bit more security. I'll give him credit. He sat up there at the age of 94 and, he's still pretty sharp and he gives the advice. Credit to him. But that's a huge deal. So they always interview him and he'll answer questions for like 2 hours. I don't know if he's doing it this morning. But
2 hours, 2 hour interviews, 6 hour questionnaires. That's impressive.
Yeah. Well, it used to be when him and Charlie Munger were together before Charlie passed away.
Yeah.
They would do like 8 to 10 hours because
that is insane
because all those people travel from all over the world to come here. Mm-hmm. And he's like, we do it once a year and you're investing in our company. You got a question to ask. I'll answer it.
I talk for 4 hours. I'm exhausted at the end of this.
Imagine that doing it when you're 94 years old. You drink 5 Cokes a day.
Well, the whole thing too of like Cory Booker had the 25-hour filibuster in Congress. Yeah. Like that is absolutely insane too. Any sort of like long public speaking arrangement that goes like past 35 minutes, I'm always just in awe of people being able to do that because I've done the presentations for like classes and marketing things and promotions and whatnot. Once you get past like the 25-minute point, you're like blurred. Like everything is blurred together. You are just talking. Your mouth is just moving. And you're like, oh, I'll say this, I'll say that. I couldn't imagine answering high-level $1 million to $1 billion financial questions at the age of 94 for 6 hours. We got to give a little more credit to that. A little more
Sounds
credit.
Like he's qualified to co-host Overreaction. Because then the listeners do the talking, and he can just add a couple of things.
And the record is 3 hours and 15 minutes.
Oh my God.
That is a good story.
Yeah.
No, it's not. That's not a good
story. The game wasn't a good story.
That was not a good story. That was a miserable show. Brandon, right away, speaking of Warren Buffett, who I learned, not a confidant, but somebody that knows the family well, because Susie is still extremely active in the Omaha community, and of course what they've done with the Buffett Cancer Center at UNMC. They told me that Warren has a gold card at McDonald's.
I heard about
that. Any McDonald's in Omaha, he has a gold card that he gets food free for the rest of his life.
But wait.
Yeah. Oh, I found this out over the weekend too. I was like, nuggets for life?
Are there like general gold cards out there for Nebraska, for McDonald's? Just period, end of story?
He may be the only one.
He's Warren Buffett. He can have one.
Yeah.
We can't. We can get a Happy Meal, maybe get a toy.
How do you get a gold card? Like, do you think if you own enough McDonald's, you get a gold card? You invest enough in stock, you get a gold card?
Stopping at the same McDonald's for nearly every day of his life.
I feel like you got to get more than there's got to be more than just Warren Buffett who's got a gold card to McDonald's. If I was a CEO of McDonald's, if I was like a high-ranking official,
T.O. doesn't strike me as a McDonald's guy.
No, he was always in good shape and still is. So
he looks like T.O. looks like a guy who would have a lot of Wendy's.
Wendy's.
Not like
I just strike him as a Wendy's
guy. He's a healthy human, but he strikes me out as a Wendy's guy because T.O. is all about quality. He's all about having high quality things, and I assume
some stock in Wendy's. You go to bat for Wendy's a lot.
I just assume that when T.O. has a burger, and I don't think he has too many, but I imagine when he has a burger, he only goes for the most high quality burger possible in the fast food chain, and that's the Wendy's burger. So that's why Tom Osborne strikes me as a guy who would have Wendy's. Because it's super high quality, and he's a high quality human with a high quality football coach.
Dave's double, the usual.
Getting a little kickback there.
I'm not getting any kickback.
You go crazy.
I love Wendy's. Wendy's is by far
I like it
my
too,
favorite fast food burger. Like without like the Baconator, the Dave single. Yeah, it's okay.
They serve a Frosty and a Dave's burger.
Yeah, a Dave single and a Frosty,
and a baked potato.
It's like you will never beat the 4 for $4, the 5 for $5. 4 for $4 if you get the kids cheeseburger, 5 for $5 if you upgrade to the bacon cheeseburger. I mean, it is Wendy's is one of the greatest establishments, period, end of story. The fries as well. Like let me tell you something right now. the texture to salt ratio that they have on those fries.
Wait, I should pay
undefeated and unbeaten. Also, too, the ranch there is awful, but if you get the ghost pepper ranch, one of the best dipping sauces in the fast food chains. Yes, I'm a Wendy's guy.
Wow, I've never had that. I hear great things about the ranch at Runza, and it is good.
The ranch at Runza is okay. There are a couple ranches that are better. It's still good, though. It's still a high-quality ranch. But Wingstop's ranch, I would take that over Runza's ranch. Red Robin's ranch, take that over
I remember
Runza's
Red
ranch.
Robin.
Buffalo Wild Wings used to have a high-quality ranch, and then
what happened?
They changed it. I don't know.
COVID?
I have no clue, but it used to be really, really good, and now it's a different ranch. There's a different texture. It's not as – it used to be thinner. Now it's a little bit thicker.
Like
Buffalo Wild Wings has fallen off, too, because it's a lot of bread. When I get the boneless wings, there's way more breading on the boneless wings than there used to be. If you know, you know.
Yeah, most of us aren't kids and we don't eat boneless wings, but that's okay.
Hey, look,
no,
they're nuggets. I like nuggets. People are like, they're not wings. All right, I don't care. I don't care what you call them.
They're not wings.
I don't care what you call them. They're great. I'll have them. Half garlic, half medium.
Yeah.
Ranch and blue cheese, please.
Brandon says you can blame Satan Peterson for no Uncle Warren money.
Oh, okay.
Stu Manji agrees with Matt. The 444 is legit.
It's with the upgrade, turns into 5 for 5.
Yeah, but prices have changed. It's still 4 for 4.
Yeah.
Really?
No, it has survived inflation. Now, I'm going to be honest with you. It's a lot of
tariffs.
It's everything is
That's what they tell me. Chickens.
Everything is a small. Okay, so it's not like it's a 4-piece nugget and a small fry and a small burger, right? And like
portion control,
the smallest drink you can have, but it's still $4. You're still having quality, and also you have the quantity of different items as well.
I mean,
have you never had it? Have you never had a 4 for 4?
I'm gonna go to Wendy's.
Why don't you?
We don't have that many here in Omaha.
It's Wendy's maybe once a year.
I go to Wendy's about 5 to 6 times a year, and I have to limit and I have to limit myself because I used to go because there's the one on Q right in front of the Union. I used to go 2 to 3 times a week. Like that used to be I'm not
judging you.
During COVID, we would call double headers on a monitor, right? So we would go and we would call one game on a monitor in the CoJMC. Then we would go to Wendy's. We would eat, and then we would go back and we would call the second game on the radio. And we did that about like 5 or 6 times.
That's a sad corner in downtown Lincoln. The old Amigos is still standing there. Nobody wants to buy it. So many memories. That's such a sad corner.
And it's a good building too. It looks like a place that could have a pretty decent restaurant in there.
Yeah, you might have to do at the end of that Amigos in downtown Lincoln. It was kind of
it was falling off. It was on his last legs.
Might have to do some work.
It was. Yeah.
I think you went there for the reputation.
Okay,
but we'll talk a little bit more about
Amigos,
Satan Peterson, and why Uncle Warren is not donating to the athletic department. Rick tweets at the show. Gary Sharp 1620 at Matt McMedia. The Wendy's breakfast Baconator sandwich, a tremendous breakfast sandwich.
It's a big, the breakfast Baconator is big. It is a massive undertaking to eat, and it's got like this weird mayo sauce that I'm not the biggest fan of. I'm not a massive breakfast Baconator fan because at some point it does become
I've ever had one.
Too much bacon and a lot of bread, but it's okay. It's good. I just prefer I just had the burgers. The burgers are just high quality at Wendy's.
I've never had a bad burger at Wendy's. I just don't go there very often.
That's true.
We
just don't have a lot of here.
There's just nowhere convenient that I would be traveling.
Now, you brought up the Frosty. I feel like a lot of people are like very high up on the Frosty with Wendy's. I'm not necessarily the biggest Frosty guy. I'm not the biggest ice cream human to begin with. But if I were to have ice cream, it's either Andy's Custard or it's Wendy's. It's different texture. Steak and Shake is pretty damn good.
This would be an awkward morning to announce Ted and Wally's as a new presenting sponsor of the show.
That would be awkward.
They're not, but
that would be.
They're
awkward.
Delicious. Shout out Ted and Wally's.
Sergeant Holka's big toe. Good morning, Don.
Yeah.
I go to Red Robin to pet the bird.
Everyone knows that I love Red Robin as well. Fries better at Wendy's than Red Robin. But if we're talking about overall dining experience and versatility within a menu, give me Red Robin.
You get the mini corn dogs?
No, I get the onion ring tower every time I go. Every time I go.
Solo?
I have taken out an onion ring tower on my own.
I remember those days.
I have been. Now, Most of the time, I share it with the family.
Shout out my A1C for being back to normal.
The problem with the onion tower, though, is that it's really big and people get full pretty quickly if you're not with a lot of people who can eat a lot. And so once you get to the last 4 rings, you feel like an animal because they're the biggest rings there, but you just keep pulling them and eating them and dipping them in ranch because they're so damn good. And then everyone's looking at you if you're a disgusting, horrible monster because you just tanked 4 of the biggest onion rings they've ever seen. At the same time, though, no guilt. No guilt. I ain't going to apologize for eating good food.
No? I don't know. I think Red Robin is a little bit stained in this town for most Omahans.
Yeah, I know we had that. We had that combo.
Yeah.
Unfortunate.
Again, places that are convenient to me, I'll go. But the Red Robin that's closest to me is about 140 blocks away.
See, that's too far.
And that's the Red Robin. You walk in, you go, I believe it happened right there.
Whoa. I've been there
All right,
once.
coming up on the show this morning, Evan Bland from the World Herald will stop by. We can't quit Evan, and people can't quit Nebraska baseball, who won another series.
They can't
after Friday night dropping a game. They rallied, walked it off on Saturday, and then rallied yesterday. And Nebraska baseball is 500. 500 for the first time since way back in February when the attitude was a little bit different, but they're playing better, little resilient club. So Evan Bland will join us coming up at 8:30. And then Jamie Kerry, who was announced yesterday as the new women's basketball coach at Omaha, will stop by the first time that she has spoken publicly after taking the job. She's the 10th head coach in the history of women's basketball at UNO. So she will join us. She's got a very interesting backstory from her time playing at Texas. Stanford, played in the WNBA. She comes from UTSA to take over the Omaha women's program. So she will join us coming up at 9. And we'll get a full interview full of hatred of Texas. Maybe we'll give her the Denny Hamlin, who yesterday, man, he's not one of my favorite NASCAR drivers, and that track is garbage, by the way.
It was
but
hard to watch that race.
He got announced, and he went horns down. Love you, Denny Hamlin.
That was awesome.
There you go. There you go. We need more hate. We need more spite. We need more that in college athletics. So that's the line brought to you by the Roof Rees and John Higgins Weather Guard. You can always join the conversation from an incredible sports weekend, locally, nationally. 402-951-1620. That is the Prairie Flower Casino hotline.
Hey-o.
We're welcoming Prairie Flower Casino in. So dial us up on that. Also, you can email us into the Equitable Bank inbox, Gary or Matt at 1620thezone.com, or on the Twitter feed or the X feed, whatever you prefer to call it these days. At Gary Sharp 1620 or at Matt McMedia. We're off and running on a Monday. Lots to discuss, including something that is bigger than the sport itself that happened this weekend. We'll dive into that when we come back at 1620 The Zone. Hey, Sovereignty won the Kentucky Derby.
Yeah.
But nobody knows because it was behind a paywall when it beat journalism. Thank you. Be here all morning.
I told you Cinco de Mayo. Jokes.
I got to save those. Those are a little bit better on the back end. Like, that's not my best stuff.
Is that what they say? Like, Cinco de Mayo jokes are better as the show goes on?
When I make a stand-up comedian appearance.
Will you ever do an open mic?
No.
Why not? I feel like you could. No. I feel like you have enough stories and life experiences to have a good 8-minute set.
Nope. I have great respect for anybody that does it, but that will not be me.
I'm going to have to do it in July. So
why are you going to have to do it in July?
Fantasy football punishment.
Oh, yeah?
I came in last place. Don't draft Trevor Etienne, ladies and gentlemen. That's what that and Zamir White just really, really tanked my season. Just a couple. Hawkinson was one of my keepers, and so I thought that they were all like, "Oh, he might be ready to go in week 1, like he might." And then they just kept pushing it back and back and back and back, and so that I didn't draft a tight end. And so actually, for the first 3 weeks, I got 0 points for my tight end, no matter who I had. It was Foster Moreau that I picked up. The guy from the Giants. It was a bad season.
So your punishment is you have to go to a comedy club. We have
to go to a comedy club, and I got to do a 10-minute set.
Ooh. Yeah. Will people be in attendance?
Yes. It'll be videotaped.
I think the Zone should have a night out.
And it'll be in Chicago, which is even worse. Because those comedy clubs are like legit comedy clubs.
Whoa. We have a legit comedy club.
No, I'm not.
Yeah, shout out Funny Bone.
I'm not saying, guys, that Omaha doesn't have legit comedy clubs.
Are you? I thought we ended this on Friday on the crossover when you and your sparring partner were going at it.
I'm not. I did not say that Omaha doesn't have legit comedy clubs. I'm just saying
we are a city of a million people.
Second City.
People forget.
There's Second City in Chicago. There's Zanies in Chicago. Okay. There's some of the most historical comedy clubs in which the greatest comedians who made the most largest impact on comedy.
I saw Frank Caliendo at the Funny Bone. He's damn good.
I mean, and Frank Caliendo has been at Zanies and all those other places as well. I'm just saying. I mean.
Yeah, you might make
Omaha's got great comedy.
You might make a good argument there. I think I'd be on your side. Matt won, Connor nothing.
When you look up on the walls and you see Dan Aykroyd and Bill Murray, it's a little bit different, And then you grab the microphone and you're like, I'm about to ruin the reputation of this place. So the original punishment was supposed to be the other people in the league write the jokes for you.
Oh, okay.
And you have to read those jokes.
Kind of
like a roast,
like Saturday Night Live.
Yeah. But I pushed back against that vehemently because I do not trust those ragamuffins.
Well, you'd be canceled.
Easily, without a doubt.
I can get you canceled.
And
I
know that they're going to be recording it. And I was like, look, we live in a day and age where it's like if we have bad jokes, it cannot be put on camera. And so it's you either record it or you write. Or you let me write my own jokes. And I'm writing my own jokes.
What you should do with your friends is just do it like Weekend Update. Like they do it, I think, twice a year at the end of the
they trade
right
jokes.
Before Christmas, and then at the end of the year, they write jokes for each other, and they don't see those jokes until they actually pop up. That's what you should do.
My career would be ruined. My career would be over. Okay, have you met my friend Jason? We'd be done in a second. I would look at that note. I would probably look at the note card and be like, "Nah, we're finished. We're not doing this."
By the way, the SNL Cold Open Saturday night was able to blend the president and Bill Belichick together.
Well done.
Well done.
I did not see it.
It was as expected for a guy who has more playoff victories in the NFL than the age of his girlfriend.
Wow.
Belichick has 31 playoff wins. His girlfriend, who forced her way into that Dunkin' Donuts Super Bowl commercial, is only 24.
Yeah, I can't believe that this whole news saga has made me rewatch Jeremy Strong being in a vat full of guava. Is that what he was in?
Did you watch the extended version? Because there is about a 7-minute.
Wow. There's a 7-minute Dunkings commercial.
Yeah, it's the whole thing together. Like the one you've seen on TV is spliced up into 30 or 60 seconds. But they did like 7.5 minutes.
It's like the commercial.
I have zero want or need to watch 7 minutes of that abomination.
Actually, Affleck was pretty funny. Like he's good in those commercials.
Yeah.
But the latest story is that she forced her way into being in that commercial.
You know what? I think we're getting to the point where we are kind of piling things on I just think now it just seems like there are a lot of people who are just saying a lot of quotes about her that are just getting because it's the hot news story.
Well, did you see over the weekend something I suggested the other day that they will look into a PR rep? I was thinking.
Yeah, I did see that too.
I was thinking about this because I was around somebody who's in that business this weekend. And who would you rather be a PR rep for right now? Shadur Sanders, Katy Perry, or Jordan Hudson?
Oh,
I think the easiest would be Shadur because if he just makes a couple of plays and he's starting for the Browns, that writes itself.
We can pivot with Shadur. We could pivot into where's your pivot, right? I feel like that's what the PR people have to think about. And the pivot for Shadur is, hey, I've been great my entire life. I've been successful this entire time. This is one of the first times I've ever faced adversity. Man, I battled through it and I came back and I'm even better. I don't know what the hell you do with Jordan Hudson other than just relinquish the control that you've been able to gain.
If I'm a PR rep, I say, you know what? The handbag industry looks really, really good for you. The one might be Katy Perry. All of a sudden, Katy Perry, after
what's happened with her?
Being in the spaceship? Well, I think Katy Perry's been in the crosshairs for a while.
I think this is. I couldn't agree more. I couldn't agree. I think people are she's been acting weird for a little bit. It's not like she's been a normal human being the entire time that she's been, and none of those people are completely normal human beings. And how can you expect them to be? But I think she's going through the news cycle where we've gotten to the point in social media where we just get sick of people. We just get sick of celebrities. We just get sick of superstars. And then we start looking for things in order to get annoyed at them about. I think we kind of we were starting that with Ryan Reynolds and Blake Lively, and then they actually started doing things that warranted it. I think she's just getting the brunt of people are looking for something with Katy Perry. And now she's
it seems like she's got a lot of backlash for going up in the spaceship. But her genre of music, the indie folks compared to the pop folks always fight and they're pick a lane.
Yeah.
She's on the struggle bus right now. Not on the struggle bus was a couple of things this weekend. So the Kentucky Derby, which they had 17.7 million watched. Not a surprise. It's one of the most watched sporting events in this country.
5:52, I turned it on. I was like, all right, just in time.
Seems to go later and later every year. But I think NBC is still on with the pre-race show, which
I love the pre-race show. I do. I start watching it at 1 and it takes me all the way up to the race. This is probably the least amount of pre-race that I've ever watched in my entire life.
Now, because I think it warrants it because the event is bigger than the sport.
Oh, the event is. You can argue that the event is the sport.
Today is the last day you talk about horse racing.
Oh yeah, for sure.
Unless Sovereignty wins the Preakness, and then you'll be like, oh, they could have a triple crown. But the whole Kentucky Derby is bigger than the sport,
without a doubt,
and that's great. And that's why so many people watch, and the ability for more people to gamble that don't have to go to a track or a casino has also helped. But NBC knows that people are going to watch, so they do the extended pre-show.
Yeah,
they get out pretty quick, though. I mean, they're like, it's over, and boom, we've interviewed the horse, and we're on to
stay tuned for your local news. Watching it on the West Coast.
So you had 2 Game 7s in hockey, back-to-back nights that a 2-goal lead was blown late, and then. I think the biggest moment of sports this weekend was there was a guy, a South African, who was playing at the Byron Nelson.
Yep,
if you shot a 23 under,
you'd feel pretty damn good about it.
Yes, but you finished 8 shots behind the leader. Scotty Scheffler shot 31 under. 31 under. So watching the start of the Pacers-Cavs game and other things yesterday. So
NASCAR.
The thing about, and that's in this list, sports that are better in person. So horse racing is definitely better in person because if you've ever been to a horse race and you get to hear and experience the power of a thoroughbred, you'll never forget it.
I agree.
Hockey is better in person.
Without a doubt.
They tried to tell us that HD TV would make hockey better on TV for the viewing experience. It's not. You don't get the same thing. Golf is better in person. As much as I like watching golf, I can't stick with it. I think golf is better in person. Baseball is better in person. Horse racing, better in person. Auto racing, better in person.
See, I haven't been to an auto racing race. So I could not tell you whether or not I enjoy it more so in person than on TV. I agree with hockey. Absolutely. I agree with horse racing too, because the buildup, like while you're there and you're reading the forums and people are making the bets and you're running around and like you're talking to people why you like your horses or whatnot. This is why I picked this guy. This is why I picked. It kind of adds to that element when you're there, as opposed to like when you're just kind of sitting at home and you got your own tickets or whatnot. I don't know about golf though, because I went to I believe it was Brooks Koepka's first major win, U.S. Open, Erin Hills in Wisconsin. I think it might have been 2018 or 2017. I forget which year it would have been. But I actually prefer golf on TV just because I like the switching to the shots and that you always have that consistent action and you're following, like, when you're sitting at home, what the leaderboard looks like every single second at every single minute, what the shot means. When I was in person at Erin Hills, I just felt like I missed a lot of shots. And there were definitely moments where I was like, who's leading? Who's winning? Like, where are we at this point? So I think like, I'll just push back against golf because I just like knowing all the information all at once, watching the television screen. But I agree. Hockey might be one of the biggest turnarounds in terms of sports, in terms of watching it on television or watching it on TV, because that's another one where when you hear the sticks, when you hear the skates, when you hear the puck, when you hear just the physicality of them hitting each other, it's so much different when it pops when you're in that environment as opposed to when you're just on the screen.
Hockey definitely is one of those sports where you're not a fan, but you go in person, and then you're like, oh, I'm hooked. I didn't realize the speed of this. It's like horse racing. You go to a track and you get to experience everything that is the lead up to a race like you were explaining. Yeah. But if you're standing next to the rail and you get to see and hear the horses go by.
Oh my God.
I mean, that is a sound in sports that I will never forget. Now, golf, okay.
I like the tracking of the action. I just feel like you can get lost.
Easier to follow.
Yeah.
But if you're going to a big event, like the Masters in person,
sure.
The PGA Championship's coming up in Charlotte in 2 weeks, which Scotty, he better check in and see what the cops are like in Charlotte.
He should just, you know what? They should just let him stay overnight for the whole week at Charlotte. Just don't even let him go to a hotel. Don't let him drive. Hey, we're gonna house you. You're our resident. We don't want to risk anything here, especially because of the fact he's easily going to be the favorite heading into that event.
Whoa!
After what he did yesterday.
What about Rory?
I think it'll be like Scotty plus. I think we'll have the same thing we had for the Masters. It'll probably be Scotty plus 400, Rory plus 650. I'll bet them both. I'll be very happy when I walk away with my $20 or $40 in profit.
Don says, of course you will. Don says baseball is a much better radio sport than TV. Takes a good storyteller behind the mic to paint the picture, though.
I would rather, if there was.
Would you rather have Hud or Jake?
See, here's my take on this.
Baseball is the best sport for radio.
Yeah. I agree with that. But if we're watching like a national game on TV or a national radio, I would prefer national radio. Okay. Because I think they do a better job of like actually painting the picture of the game instead of like, because they have a lot of high marks they got to hit during a national TV broadcast in terms of like stories, and they don't necessarily focus in on the teams as much as I would like. Like they talk a lot of like big picture stuff. I prefer national radio. If we're talking local though, local baseball TV or local baseball radio, I think it's dependent. Like like on who the announcers are, who you prefer. I don't know if it's as blanketed as it's just better on the radio.
I would rather listen to Pat and Ron than watch Boog. And is he ever coming back?
I don't know.
Where has he been?
I have no idea.
So I got Alex Cohen, who was the voice of the Iowa Cubs last year, is the fill-in guy, like permanent fill-in guy, so there's no Beth Mowens. Bang. And I like Jim DeShays, but I prefer Cubs baseball on the radio compared to on TV.
Absolutely.
All right, when we come back, now that we're into the offseason, Nebraska football is on a list, and it's one of the worst lists. But it's up for debate. We'll get into that when we return. Also, a weekend. Jimmy, it's had to be a rough weekend for you.
Rough weekend. Yeah. Very, very sad.
Yeah.
I got a
end of an era.
Text and a DM and all this stuff driving home, and just went to the Target parking lot because I had to stop there on the way home and just saddened my feelings.
Yeah, and the female Michael Jordan played in Iowa City.
She was so good
yesterday, but they made a major mistake with their game ups that did not sit very well with the people at Carver Hawkeye. All of that to come as we roll till 10. A little bit later, we'll introduce you to the brand new Omaha women's basketball coach, Jamie Kerry. Hired yesterday, makes her first media appearance coming up at 9, along with Evan Bland. Not together, but separate. Evan interviews Jamie at 1620 The Zone. All right, happy Cinco de Mayo. Hour number 2, Gary and Matt. A little bit later, Evan Bland stops by. Nebraska baseball back to 500, won 2 of 3 against Minnesota. Big game tomorrow night. Nebraska and Creighton for the trophy that does not exist. It is the rubber match in Lincoln.
The weather's going to be outstanding.
Hey, look, man.
All week.
The Haymarket Park was rocking this weekend. The weather warms up, people show up, but it was a good weekend for red, white, and blue. Actually, not red, white, and blue. Blue, black, and red Nebraska and the softball and baseball.
Weather was absolutely incredible this weekend. Rolled down the windows, played the music, no need for air conditioning. So that was absolutely incredible, and I'm glad we're continuing that. But on top of it, the facts that they were down 3-1, Nebraska baseball down 3-1 in game 1, or 3-0 early in game 1 of the series. They're down 4-1 in game 2 of the series. They're down 3-1 in game 3 of the series. They end up coming back. One of them went to extras. The first game you lose in extras, and then you win the 2 other games. I think that we talked about this very early in the year, right? February, March, about piss and vinegar and having a little bit of, chutzpah and having like that grind and like having some fire, right? When you come back in all 3 of these games and you compete the way that they did in 3 of those games and you pick up 2 wins that you desperately needed, that puts you back into the playoff picture for the Big Ten Conference, championships. I think this team is hitting a stride right now. And, maybe they weren't as dominant as you might have wanted them to be, considering the fact that Minnesota isn't that great of a baseball team this year. But I think it's actually more impressive to me that they were down in those situations, that Minnesota did have a lead. Minnesota did jump on them, that there were moments that you were like, are they going to be able to do this? And they end up doing that. I don't know if this team wins these games.
They're like a box of chocolates
in March, but they won them now when it matters the most. And, I know it's the cliche of like, you want to be clicking going into the playoffs, but
they're taking advantage of their schedule.
Yeah. Big time. Oh, absolutely.
Which
you need to do.
No complaining. Yeah. Everybody knew that on the back end, it would lighten up a little bit. So they're back to 500. They take on Creighton tomorrow night at 6:02. Do not be late for that game. Evan Bland will join us. Jamie Kerry, brand new Omaha women's basketball coach as of yesterday. We'll let her know that she's been hired when we talk to her coming up at 9. Lineup brought to you by the rooferees at John Higgins Weather Guard.
1620 The Zone gives you a job.
So the Stanley Cup playoffs, which the worst lead is a 2-goal lead, and now the Avalanche, by the way, I feel for the Avs fans. Huskers X's and O's is a huge Avs fan. They've lost 7 straight game 7s. And they were up 2 goals in that game, and then to get beat who they got beat by. But the margin is so razor thin when it comes to hockey. And last night reminded me, so this is for Bruin Steve that is listening, who, by the way, was a Berkey this weekend. Game 7 in the playoffs when Boston was trailing Toronto 4-1.
Yes.
And came back and won in overtime back in 2013. That's kind of what last night reminded me of. But in the postseason, that's when people will watch the NHL and they'll tell, hey, get over to TBS. If you're watching the Dubs and the Rockets, you got to go watch something else. Then there is March Madness, which we'll call that the playoffs.
Oh,
and then there is the NFL.
Yeah.
So this time of the year, NHL is like, oh my gosh, you got to watch it because the puck is on cocaine. But if I had to compare those 3 that I just mentioned in terms of the best sport, which has the best playoffs, NFL. Every game in the NFL postseason is game 7.
No, I would say March Madness.
There is no tomorrow.
I would say, and I know what you're saying, but I think for me with March Madness, it's the same way, where every game is. Now, granted, in the first round, right, you have the 1s versus 16s and the 2 and 15s. Like, you have some matchups that don't matter as much or aren't as close. But I think, like, the nonstop tip-off every 20 minutes, everybody's fighting for their season. You have so many stories, especially, like, if you've been a fan of college basketball, because that's the thing. College basketball is great for everybody for March Madness, but it definitely is rewarding for the people who have followed the entirety of the season because the inner, the embedded storylines of every game and potential matchups and whatnot. I just think that, like, there is nothing nothing like the last 2 minutes of an NCAA tournament game where a team is up 4, down 4, whatever. Those dying moments of every possession matters, every rebound matters, every pass matters. Like, I think with the NFL, you get that. Don't get me wrong, you get that. You just don't get it at the same frequency. We
don't get as many like last second field goals.
No,
but for the entirety, and I'm probably in the minority here when I say the NFL compared to these three. The NHL is almost an outlier where, you're going to get a banger in the postseason.
Yeah.
But when I say the NFL is because you got 60 minutes of Game 7 where every single play matters.
Yeah.
Bill says, what about the NBA? He goes, I'm a hoops head. The NBA, I watch more NBA now than I do during the regular season, so I might be a little bit biased here. I mean, we had a game. We had back-to-back Game 7s.
To be honest, both Game 7 sucked.
Oh, they were
awful. I even stayed up.
The only way you enjoyed it is if you believe that Kobe was telling the truth when he said that James Harden would never be a winner, because it's true.
That's
absolutely true.
He has lost.
I did enjoy that game.
With 4 different teams, he's lost a Game 7.
The
2 NBA games did not deliver like the 2 NHL games did.
Well, James Harden, by the way, his last 2 Game 7s, he's had 16 combined points, which is absolutely ridiculous.
Fantastic.
But I think with playoff hockey,
he's got 0 rings.
I love playoff hockey. You love playoff hockey. We're hockey guys, right? But I think for the general public with playoff hockey, I think most people, until you get to the conference finals, will watch Game 1, right? And then they'll watch the elimination game. And I don't really know how many people are really tuning in for like Game 2, Game 3, Game 4, Game 5. Like, I think a lot of people, when it's like the biggest game of the series, people start tuning in. And when it's a new matchup, people tune in. But I don't think you get that like hold on an audience as much as maybe we convey that. Now, with the NFL, and I'm on I hate expanded playoffs across all sports. I don't like that the NBA made it to 10 teams with the play-in. I don't like that the MLB has gone to 3 wild cards, and I especially don't. I especially don't like the NFL going with 7 teams. Okay, and in the last 2 years, that first wild card weekend hasn't been that competitive. I mean, we are now 2 years in a row where we've had an average of a 10-point differential across Super Wild Card weekend. I'm not saying that we were getting every game was down to the last field goal when we were doing 16 playoffs, but they were way more competitive than these 17 playoffs. And so I think that the NFL playoffs, and don't get me wrong, I love it too, but I do think that adding that extra team has watered down the field, because you also got to recognize you used to have 2 buys. Now you have 1 bye. You used to have the 3 team playing the 6 team. Now you have the 2 team playing the 7 team. It's not as competitive. We know that the Buffalo Bills are way better than the last, team in the playoffs. So I think the watering down of the playoffs has done no favors for anyone across sports, but especially the NFL.
There is a list that is out because we're in the list season.
I love list season. I know that some people can find list season to be very tedious and annoying. And I'm not saying you, I'm saying just other media people in general, because I've worked with media people who
What media people think it's tedious? Names.
Well, they work in Chicago.
Oh.
Yeah.
Again, Chicago more tedious than Omaha. You're always comparing.
That's where I'm from. But they are. They hate it. They couldn't stand it. I love list season. I love it. I enjoy it. I think it's fun.
Some lists.
I think it's fun and funny because there are some lists that are fun. There are some lists that are good. There are some lists that you read and you're like, wow, this was educational. This was informational. There are some lists where you look at it and you go, this is the stupidest thing ever. Like, why are we even ranking this?
Well,
why are these people even here?
If you like lists, we're 9 sleeps away from the NFL schedule being released. But there was USA Today this weekend put out their top 25 coaches. Rule, I think, was 18. Rule and his wife were at the Kentucky Oaks on Friday. There's also a list I saw over the weekend of Athlon, SP Plus, and College Football News combined rankings. Akron's terrible. That's a good pickup on Nebraska's non-conference schedule. I think Akron is 127th in the country. And what do we have? 136 Division I programs.
Yeah, they have any openings?
It's in the mid-30s.
So there is a list, and this is a list that Nebraska appears on. This is on CBS Sports the 15 worst coaching hires.
Oh, Lord.
The number one, because there are 5 out of the Big Ten that are on this list. Would you like to guess? Let's go. Who in the last decade?
Okay.
The 5th worst coaching hire comes from the SEC.
I did see that.
You thought that because of who he coached under, he'd be good, but ran into a little bit of trouble.
I don't know.
He only won 5 games. Jeremy Pruitt.
Oh, okay.
People thought that was a good hire because he had worked for Fisher, Mark Richt, and Nick Saban.
It seemed to be a safe hire.
And he was one of the more popular defensive coordinators.
We definitely have to go back and dive into the same thing with Golden State and the assistant coaches who become head coaches. In a couple of years, we have to do a full deep dive.
Gary St. Jean didn't work out in
Sacramento. Alabama assistant coaches to head coaches. How much is that success rate? Because there's some guys who've done a great job. And there are some guys who, definitely had to battle through some things.
Guy in Athens has done a nice job.
Oh, incredible.
But he's one of the rare ones that came off the Saban tree.
Well,
that's just like the Tom Osborne tree.
Well, it's the same thing with the Bill Belichick tree, And
because they expect you're hiring Nick Saban, Bill Belichick, or Tom Osborne. You're not. You're hiring Romeo Crennel.
Well, another thing is that I think some of those coaches
come off of any of those trees, but that was just a name I wanted to mention.
I do think a problem with those trees too is that those guys think they have to be Nick Saban or Bill Belichick or Tom Osborne. Like they have to coach in that way, right? And I think you've especially seen that with like the Patriots coaches, and that just doesn't work.
Willie Taggart is 4th on this list.
Yeah,
earned.
Well, so Willie Taggart was doing work in
USF.
Florida.
He was good
at USF. He was really, really good. They went from 2-10. And then in his final year, they were 10-2, and that got him the job at Oregon. But he always seemed like an odd fit to go from, because he had worked at Western Kentucky and then South Florida, so his connections were in the South, to go all the way to the Pacific Northwest and to be at Oregon and who he was taken over for. He goes 7-5, Florida State job opens up, and he bounces to Florida State, and
it didn't work out.
It did not work out at all because he inherited at Florida State a very talented roster that Jimbo had left after he resigned.
Yeah,
but he won 9 games in 2 years. He got paid though. $18 million was his buyout when they got rid of him.
Wow. Went into the wrong line of work.
The number one,
good save.
It's in the corner. We're good. I am a spiller, man. I'm a spiller.
You need to put like stuff away.
I know
because it's going to roll into the
we
console.
Taught you
there.
about the corner.
I'm cleaning it up. I got it.
The worst hire in the last decade out of the Big Ten is number 3 on this list.
Can I guess?
Yep.
Mel Tucker?
Nope.
No.
Oh.
Ryan Walters.
Had high hopes for him.
Me too.
Coach.
Very high hopes because of who he had just coached for. Now, remember, he was, when the Purdue job opened up.
We're good.
Why are we cleaning up over there?
Because I'm spilling over here. And I'm like, not all my drinks are fully like drunk, and I forgot to put the top back on a water bottle. But we're good. We're doing maintenance.
So, you're a defensive coordinator under Fat Bert, and their defense was pretty good. And you're
really
looking at Purdue, which Purdue had gone on this run of hiring Mid-American coaches.
Yeah.
And now they got a guy that was a DC at a Big Ten school that was playing well and knew the Big Ten, and also was the odds-on favorite to be the Colorado head coach as the former Colorado defensive back coach until Dion got involved. And then it was like, I want to be the guy that replaces Dion. So Ryan Walters takes the Purdue job, and
they thought he might.
Well, he goes there, and remember, he was replacing Jeff Brom, who was winning and was getting NFL guys. Mm-hmm. So they were recruiting very, very well. But man, and good luck to Barry Odom to pick up those pieces, because Ryan Walters, in a short amount of time, just destroyed everything that Brom had built. I mean,
remarkably
fast. They weren't just bad; they were awful. I mean, they finished 1-11 last year, and he got fired.
Yeah.
But they lost by an average of 31 a game.
I remember watching that Notre Dame game to begin the year, and I saw them play, and I go, this team doesn't have an O-line, it doesn't have a D-line, it doesn't have any sort of skill position players that you can go to. Their quarterback is awful. I was like, I don't know how many. I don't know if they're going to win a game. I remember watching that Notre Dame game, thinking like this team is going to be bad, and then they ended up being one of the worst spread teams in the country. And this isn't like a gambling thing. It's notable because I think Vegas kept thinking, okay, well, they're this bad. And then they would lose and they're, okay, actually they're worse than that. And then they kept giving them more points and points and points, and they couldn't cover it until they finally played Illinois and nearly beat them in double overtime.
The portal killed Purdue.
Yeah.
Because Walter showed up and it was free reign. And they did lose some talented players. I mean, one of his best defensive players is going to be starting at Oregon in the secondary. Number 2 on this list, very popular guy amongst Mr. Chavez, Les Miles. Les went 3-18.
Jeez.
I'm thankful for him because he was crazy enough to get fired, and now things have been righted. So
I thought he was retired, and somehow KU lured the 65-year-old Les Miles out of retirement.
Lawrence is a wonderful place. You know it well.
I just feel like
that was an awful hire.
Especially now in this
I did not like it then. I still don't like it now.
He didn't get fired for his record.
No.
Which he was 3-18.
He got fired for bad stuff.
Yeah, at LSU.
I know that this is a while ago, and things have changed a little bit since then. But I do think the whole luring older coaches out of retirement type deal, we have to stop doing that as sports in general. When guys retire, especially these older guys,
after Lombardi retired, he should have stayed retired.
You're saying that Mac Brown shouldn't be back in college football?
No, but
a year away?
I don't think that Tony La Russa should have been hired by the Chicago White Sox. I mean, I just think now. Like, I think maybe back in the day, 20, 30 years ago, you could probably do that because sports from 1985 to 1995 we were still in the same realm of like there hadn't been massive changes to where it's a completely different sport. We are now at the point where all sports are just very, very different today than they were 15, 20 years ago, where it's like hiring guys based on that success. You shouldn't do it anymore. We should not, like, I'm not saying that the things that people accomplished in 2005 to 2010 don't matter. Those are accomplishments. You should be proud of them. But we can't judge anymore that, like, can you coach now based on when you did what you did then? Because it's just we're so different across the board.
All right, Chad Morris is number 1 on this list. Got hired at Arkansas. He was a successful Texas high school coach. Remember, he was an OC under Dabo at Clemson. They hired him at Arkansas.
Seemed like it might be
not
okay.
go. Well, yeah. I thought, okay, he's a guy that's got connections to the state of Texas. And he comes in, I think he went 4-18. Now, on this list at number 7 is Mike Riley. 19-19.
Yeah.
Jimmy Lake, Washington. Herm Edwards.
Arizona. Yeah.
Brian Harsin. Mel Tucker shows up.
Yep.
Kevin Sumlin at Arizona.
Come on, where is it?
Chris Ash, 15.
You know what's coming.
Number 13 is Scott Frost.
Yeah.
Now, this is the worst coaching hires of the past decade. I would not put Scott Frost on this list. I would not put him on there because it really wasn't a hire. It was, this is the guy that's going to be the head coach at Nebraska. I'm being a little semantics here.
Sure.
But it's clear if you are going to do this list, because, listen, Frost got hired and he was the right guy. Everybody said he's the only guy. He got hired.
Sure.
Okay. But if you want to go a little bit of comparison of the two coaches prior to Rule that are on this list, Mike Riley's era was greater, much greater than Scott Frost's era in terms of success. 19-19, 2 bowl appearances, won a bowl game.
Yeah.
But it also leads to something else with those last 2 guys. Now, Frost, happy for him, it's rejuvenated, and he's back in a place that he should have never left.
Yeah.
But there's a thing about Matt Rule taking the Nebraska job. So the last 2 guys are on this list.
Sure.
And you also got to factor in who's hiring them. But that's Eichhorst hiring Riley.
Yeah.
I don't blame Moose for hiring Frost. He
would have gotten killed if he didn't. If you don't get Scott Frost there, people are like, "What the hell are you doing?"
Bill Moose didn't hire Scott Frost. Okay, Scott Frost got hired by Scott Frost at Nebraska.
Good way of putting it.
So he is at Central Florida. But you also have to look at who hired these people. I mean, they should put Chris Ash, and then who was the athletic director at Rutgers, and are they still there?
Yeah.
But there's the thing about Matt Rule and having success at Nebraska is you do have a fear of, that's where coaching careers go to die is Nebraska. Because if you don't have success at Nebraska, what's your next option? Let's look at Bill Callahan.
Sure.
Never was a head coach again.
No.
Celebrated offensive line coach, back in his wheelhouse. Then comes Bo. Bo had success here, but then Bo went to
nowhere.
Youngstown State.
Yeah.
What is Bo doing now?
Is he still
He's not
DC?
coaching at Youngstown State?
Mike Riley. Mike Riley is 500 after leaving Oregon State. Comes here. He has been a minor league professional football coach.
Yeah.
Scott Frost leaves here, goes, rehabs, then gets hired back at a place. He wasn't going to get hired anywhere else, but he gets hired back in a place where he had success. Sure. Then you have Matt Rule. If Rule has success here, you'll love him long time.
Yeah.
But if you don't, you get the reputation at Nebraska. Oh, from the outside, it looks great. You have all these bells and whistles and fan support, and you're in the Big Ten, and man, you're the only show in town. But you could get a rep of, this is where coaches' careers come to die, is the head football coach at Nebraska.
It's the double-edged sword. It's the double-edged sword of having all of these resources and having all the money and having all the attention, because you have to look at it this way, right? You're sitting in that chair and you're like, man, this is a great chair to sit in. Like we can nationally recruit. We have a ton of money. We got great facilities. People are actually interested in like my football team. It's a great chair to sit in. At the same time, if you're not successful, if you don't win games, there is a reputation. You kind of form a reputation for yourself of, well, if you can't win at Nebraska with all the money and all the resources and all the fan support, are you really that good of a coach? How do you know that you can do it? We have less resources. We have less fan support. We have less ability to go out and get talent. How are you going to be successful here if you can't do it at Nebraska? That's the double-edged sword of like, hey, it's a premier job and I'm happy to have it and I get paid all the money, but you take the inherent risk of, well, if I don't do well, there are going to be a lot of people being like, well, if you can't do it there, you're going to do it here. It's tough. But at the same time, I still think that Nebraska has the pull of like, you know, if they are to hire another coach down the line, you still have a lot of bells and whistles and toys.
But think about it though for a moment.
Sure.
And you know, I think there's a rightfully so a ton of optimism for year 3 of Matt Rule. But if you look at the times that Nebraska's job has been open, any big names where you went, whoa, I can't believe they either interviewed or were interested in the job.
Not really. Not like that's the one thing where I think back when, and correct me if I'm wrong, like there was whispers of like before Urban Meyer, when Urban Meyer was at Utah, right, that he was involved in you know, before Callahan got hired, that he might have been there. But no, I mean, like there was Kiffin, but I don't think Kiffin ever really like that was. I think those were just internet rumors and people just having pie in the sky ideas.
We had a day on the show.
Think about
him
names,
being the coach, but I don't.
Think about names that have been seriously attached to Nebraska when their job has been open.
Yeah,
Jim Grobe.
No.
Houston Nutt.
No.
Dave Wanstead.
Mike Zimmer.
Yeah. No.
Dave Wanstead.
Yeah.
Norv Turner.
Oh, I forgot that one.
I mean, that was Satan Peterson going through.
Man, did they just go through the 92
Cowboys?
Cowboy staff?
Leipold was around, so that's a better one, but still not considered. He's not the big name that like. He's not a big name SEC coach.
No, the biggest one probably that there was some serious. You believe that they were a candidate, and he never got interviewed. Was Kyle Whittingham? That was the backup to Mike Riley.
Yeah.
Is that Kyle Whittingham was waiting in Salt Lake City. And if their meeting between Perlman, Eichhorst, and Riley doesn't go well in San Francisco, they were going to stop in Salt Lake City and interview Kyle Whittingham. But there hasn't the job being open with everything that goes with being the head football coach at Nebraska. If you look at the names, there is no name where you go, whoa.
Well,
or that name that's on there outside of Lance Leipold, which was he was the backup.
Yeah.
If it had not worked out with Rule and they'd not been able to figure it out with the Carolina Panthers.
Love you, Coach Rule.
Leipold, if they could convince Wife that let's leave Lawrence, then that was going to happen. But none of these people that I just rattled off were on any of these top 25 coaching lists.
I think.
And Burt was never a serious candidate at any time, was he?
No. Okay. So here's what happened with that. Because Bielema,
which is unfortunate.
So two guys. Mike Gundy's agent has tried twice to get him involved at Nebraska, and Nebraska's never picked up the phone. Eichhorst took a phone call from Bielema, but Bielema was not interested in the job. Bielema had a suggestion. He said, I know Paul Christ and I know Mike Riley.
Yeah. Well, and I mean, it dates back to Eichhorst, because one of the reasons Riley gets hired is because he met him at a camp, right? I mean, he met him at one of those like recruiting camps, I'm pretty sure. And then like he just wanted to hire a guy that he knew. But like, let's talk about, so you talk about all the big names. Like there hasn't been a massive name attached to Nebraska coming to Nebraska in the head coaching search. And I think what this boils down to is Nebraska is a great job if you're going from a, medium size program to then taking the step up to a big program, right? It is, if you are a coach that's had success at those, at a Kansas, at a Baylor, at schools that are respected, right, in terms of football, but aren't necessarily the top blue blood programs, it's a great jump point. But if you are already at a big program, I don't know if you like, if you're already winning, because Nebraska isn't going to hire a guy from a big program who's 500 right now. They're not going to hire a guy who's, he's the Alabama coach, but he's 13-13. You're not going to hire that guy. You're going to hire someone at a big program that's had a ton of success. If you're at a big program, why would you want to leave the success that you have to then go and take over a project where, Nebraska can be a blue blood. Nebraska can be a big one of the big dogs, but at the same time, it's a risk. It's risky. If you are having a ton of success at an SEC school, I don't think you want to take that risk at all, because and once again, we can talk about this too. Now you go ahead and you fail. Where else do you go?
The SEC and the Big Ten, the money is like even across the board. So if you're looking for a bump, but think about this. So if Rule does well at Nebraska, I think that sets it up for the next head coach to come in here, because they'll look and say, okay, the program has turned the corner.
Stabilized.
They've had the curse. They've blown up the Callahan Rock. They brought Frank back. They killed Herbie. They ditched the Killigan song.
Red
all
of
done. That kind of stuff. Little Red's not done. Little Red's huge.
You're the only one who likes Little Red.
By the way,
you got to add Little Red to that combo.
My wife wants to deflate him.
If you're going to get rid of everybody else, you got to get rid of Little Red as well.
Little Red is voted the most popular mascot in all of college sports.
That is not true.
Yep. You know what? When they have graduation in Lincoln and the mascots do their thing where they do the TikTok video of their life is changing, and they show the mascot walking, and then they walk behind a wall, and out comes the person
Brutus.
That was in it. Brutus, by the way,
was a female.
She was great. Past year.
Awesome job.
But Little Red is moving on, and it's going to be a tough chore, because
step out of the balloon.
It is clearly amongst not just kids, but everybody, the most popular mascot in the history of mascots.
It's not true at all.
Look it up. There's a list. Do you like list season? Look up the list. But think about this about Nebraska football. So if Rule does well, and I don't think Rule's a lifer here, okay? But I also don't think he's just going to bounce to Penn State. He may say, you know what? I got a good life. I'm mid-50s. Boom, peace.
He's going to leave it better than he found it.
But yeah, because nobody has really left the job better than they found it. But if Rule has success here, because of the respect that he has in the industry, people will go, okay, that program has turned the corner. But also think about this. Nebraska football in the last 20 plus years, have hired two guys to run their football program, to run a Fortune 500 company that were unemployed at the time that they were hired. In Bill Callahan and Matt Rule.
That's a great stat. It is. Look, it's the Nebraska football job, and you're absolutely right, until it's proven that it can be a winner again, very much is a medium job to a big job stepping stone. It is not oh my God, I'm already at a big job, but it could get even bigger. It's just not. But you kind of compare it to a car. It's like a 97 Mustang. You buy the 97 Mustang, and it doesn't run as well as it used to anymore, but it's still cool. It's still got the hood. It still has the racing stripe. It still has a lot of potential. You're like, man, if I can get this thing running again, this is going to be super, super cool to drive this thing around. Hey, maybe I can even flip it for more money if I'm able to do it. But it's hard to rebuild, and that's what Nebraska is. It's a beautiful, beautiful old vintage car that, man, if you can get it.
From 1997.
Well, I mean, it's still true, like 27 years old. It's a vintage car that if you can get it running again, man, people are going to look at you and be like, man, you're cool, man. You did it, man. You're successful. But if you can't, people are going to look at you and be like, well, if he can't do it, if this mechanic can't get the car running, how the hell am I going to get the car running?
Think about the impact, because Mel Tucker is on this list. If Mel Tucker does not get Kenneth Walker III to transfer from Wake Forest, they won 11 games when he was there, including a weird game on a Saturday night against Nebraska. All right, we got to take a quick break. We'll come back. Evan Bland joins us in an hour. And Gary and Matt with Jimmy at 1620 The Zone. All right, we begin a week, and the weather looks really, really good. You know, the last couple of weeks, it's been rough with the skies and the storms that have probably done a toll on your roof, your siding, and your gutters. So what do you do? What do you do is you turn to an Omaha roofing company that is focused on restoration, gutters, siding, roofing systems, all of that. That is Moose Roofing. In business for over 30 years, bricks and mortar store. They're not on wheels. They're here before the storm, during the storm, and after the storm. They are Omaha. All the way, work from western Iowa to Lincoln. Residential roofing, roof repair and service, commercial roofing. They just don't show up and go, let's just put a roof on. They get into the nuts and bolts. They get to know you, your needs, and they tell you everything that they can do for you. They'll go through the elements. I sit down with Pat Moose, and he's all of a sudden rattling off the ventilation system, and he tells me, Gary, this is what it does. Maximum net-free area. They'll show you how to fortify your roof. They'll do it all. That's why they are the best of the best when it comes to roofing in Omaha. Plus, they go a step further. Pat tells me that the insurance companies are really hammering their customers on the claims process. Well, Moose Roofing has an entire department that is dedicated to helping their customers navigate that process so that they can get things started, so that the most important asset, your home, is taken care of with Moose Roofing. Schedule an inspection today. Have Pat and the crew come out and assess what you need, and then get to work for you. 402-763-4851 or online at mooseroofing.com.
Talk to the guys, or otherwise known as my coworkers, on 1620 The Zone by calling the Prairie Flower Casino Hotline. Each week, we'll be giving out a $100 gift card to Prairie Flower Casino. Enter to win now, 1620thezone.com.
All right, 55 years ago today. Remember this, Matt?
No.
The Boston Celtics, who begin their series tonight against the New York Knickerbockers.
Rematch of the 1990 collapse in the first round.
11th championship in 13 years. Celtics beat the Lakers at the Forum. Bill Russell retired after the game.
Don Nelson hit a shot that bounced almost to the roof of the Forum.
I can't stand the Knicks. I cannot stand them.
I have a text that confirms what Matt's saying.
I cannot stand them. I think the New York... So, like, I'm not a big outside of your rivals dislike a team guy. Okay, like I've never really hated the Yankees or the Mets or the Dodgers or the Lakers. Like I think some of that hate is just a little bit of jealousy of being in a big market and having a team that spends a lot and then always beats you. Right, you feel like you're working harder than them, but they're getting rewarded for it. I can't stand the Knicks. That is the one team where I'm like absolutely not, because they do not deserve.
Go New York, go.
They just They just do not deserve the attention and constant talk. And it's like they are awful, and they've made so many bad decisions over their last 20 years in terms of like not only just on the court, but off the court as well. And all we do is talk about the Knicks over and over. And then I don't think my eyes can roll farther back in my head than we say, the NBA is better when the New York Knicks are good. When the New York Knicks are good, the sport is better. Yeah, because we got a bunch of loud New Yorkers screaming in my face. That's why the sport's better.
This is a safe place, Mr. Chicago.
Because more people
because
are
Tibbs
yelling
has
at
had
me.
Better success in New York than he did in Chicago.
What success? What has he had in New York? What success? They haven't been to an NBA Finals. They haven't been. Have they even been to a Western Conference Finals or an Eastern Conference Finals?
Tibbs has been better in New York than he was in Chicago.
They actually made an Eastern Conference Finals in Chicago. I feel like
that's where you're coming from here.
In 2011, we made the Eastern Conference Finals. He hasn't made the Eastern. Has he made the Eastern Conference Finals with the Knicks?
He would have loved Charles Smith back in the day. Like, that's right, block him again.
I mean, Tom Thibodeau is the Mike McCarthy of the NBA.
Whoa, that's a good one.
The guy, he just wins. He wins 53 regular season games pretty consistently. He gets to the playoffs.
Find a different comp.
Why?
Mike McCarthy's won a Super Bowl.
He did.
He's got a street named after him in Green Bay.
Mm-hmm.
If we're okay,
he coached a guy.
Tom Thibodeau's Dallas Cowboy Mike McCarthy.
He coached a guy that I think I'm on to Aaron Rodgers.
No, you're just kidding. You're just
former Spurs assistant.
What about him? Because he's married now. Because he's married.
That's making sense. That he was stretching this out because he secretly got married.
What do you mean? He can just sign a contract.
No, he's got to have some drama. You got to get
focus. You got to get your ducks in a row before you sign a contract.
The wedding. I mean, the Steelers are low key doing some moves that set it up to a win now. Aaron Rodgers.
I got a job before getting married. I don't recommend it.
So that has to happen this week because the NFL schedule comes out next week.
Yeah, Joey's on hold.
And the Steelers will be. I mean, they're already popular, but they would add a couple of primetime games if he is in Pittsburgh officially.
I think even more so because of that, Aaron Rodgers won't sign. Because if there was anyone who would give a middle finger to,
I love your Chicago angst towards anybody
Aaron,
that
to the NFL
because
he thinks he's so cool and he's so great and he's bigger than the league. He'll be like, "Oh, I'll sign on May 15th." That's what he'll do. Because it's all about Aaron. It's always been all about Aaron, and it's incredible to me that it took everybody.
Don Mikowski was offsides.
It took him going to New York, and it took him being on McAfee for everyone to find out that it's all about Aaron. But it's been all about Aaron the second he stepped foot in Green Bay.
Right.
There's a reason Brett Favre didn't like him. There's a reason.
Jesus, you got some angst towards the owner of the Chicago Bears.
I do. True. George McCaskey, I have a ton of angst towards.
Oh, I think his name is Aaron Rodgers. If he is married,
congrats.
Who is he married to?
He's that one TV star. He was dating.
Narrows it down.
No,
Sally Jesse Raphael.
Will she be at the Met Gala tonight?
She was in.
So I'll be able to figure this out.
She was in one of those Netflix shows.
Carol Baskin.
No, not Carol Baskin.
I hear she's available.
Shailene Woodley.
Okay.
Ooh, I know who that is.
I don't know.
So if he is married.
Oh, wait. No. It says no. Shailene Woodley and Aaron Rodgers are not married. They ended their engagement and relationship in early 2022. They had been together for just
whoever
over a
he
year.
is with in 2025, because that was the rumor this weekend, is that he has not done anything because he got married.
So here's the AI overview on Google, which I don't know how trustworthy it is, but it says, yes, Aaron Rodgers is currently in a serious relationship with a woman named Brittany.
That narrows it down again.
Revealed on
that'd be
this on the Pat McAfee show in 2024.
Hey, if it was Brittany Mahomes,
Pat Taker.
By the way,
that'd be good.
By the way,
Aaron, you want Jackson? I know you got a brother you don't like. Do you want another brother that you don't like?
And then I'm all on Pat Mahomes.
Patrick, who his haircut makes him look completely different.
Looks young.
My quarterback looks like he is loaded up, man. The dad bod is gone. Bodes well for Nebraska football. But Brittany was with him at the F1 in Miami yesterday.
Yep.
They were together.
Oh, Brittany and Pat?
Yeah, they were together. They were together.
That was...
question here. By the way, Zach says, it is so great that Aaron Rodgers lives rent-free in your head.
Look, he does. Okay? He does. But at the same time, that doesn't take away from the fact that he is, just not a... he's an intention.
Has anybody asked, does he want the stadium in Arlington or on the lakefront?
If it's on the lakefront, I'm going to...
Will the field be named after him, or...
All right. We can cut it there.
George Halas Stadium at Aaron Rodgers Field?
Oh, I wonder what they're going to call that new stadium.
Probably
something stupid.
The Rogers Center?
Yeah.
All right, when we come back,
that'd be tough.
Stu Manji has brought up a great point in this discussion about Nebraska football, which in 20-plus years, 2 times they've hired somebody that was unemployed, which is wild to think.
It's kind of crazy.
If there's a third in the next 30 years, what are we doing?
I mean, and Rule literally just got freshly fired from a job.
Well, Bill Callahan wasn't very long from being fired by the Raiders.
By the Raiders. Both got fired from NFL teams. Crap. That's too funny.
So in a couple of years, we should check the wire?
Sean McDermott, come on down.
Brian Schottenheimer. Taking my shot now.
Man, I can't wait. I can't wait to see Ben Johnson's offense in the Big Ten.
But Stu Manji brought up an interesting point that brings Nebraska baseball, his favorite, into the discussion. We'll do that when we come back on 1620 The Zone.
When the Stars, or anybody, scores buckets, you could score cash on Underdog during this NBA playoffs. It's one of the leading places to make all your sports picks, and you can play now in your state. Millions of fans have already won billions making picks on Underdog. Will you be next? Playing on Underdog is a layup. Why not a slam dunk? Anyway, just download the app, pick higher or lower in player stats like points, assists, and more. Once your picks feel good, you can play with as little as $1 if everything's right. You could win up to 1,000 times your money tonight on Underdog. Expect the Nuggets to go a little bit lower. They should be a little tired, although they only had to play about a half on Saturday night, so maybe that bodes well. So if you want more of a sure thing, SGA to go higher on points. Just trust me, he usually does. Hope I didn't jinx it. Blame Matt if that happens. Anyway, download the Underdog app and sign up with promo code ZONE to unlock a special offer of up to $1,000 in bonus cash when you make your first deposit. That's promo code ZONE. Must be 19 plus in Nebraska. And present in a state where Underdog Fantasy operates. There's a number of them, but find out first. Terms apply. Concerned with your play. Call 1-800-GAMBLER. Visit ncpgambling.org.
Imagine Scratchtown Brewery in Ord had their busiest day ever on Saturday. Great scene in Ord for the Nebraska spring match against South Dakota State. Danny Busboom Kelly, who I believe this will be a big week for an addition to the family, is not doing anything to squelch the enthusiasm for the upcoming Nebraska volleyball season. Maybe could have dropped the set. Maybe could have had the middles not play well. But get ready for a full off season of hype, and deservedly so for Nebraska volleyball. But also the hype for Scratchtown Brewery in Ord, which is a banger of a place. I would love to see how much business they did on Saturday.
Oh, me too.
Because there were people stopping to pick up to go on their way out of Ord.
That's the mark of a small town, where you have that one place that is just the local establishment that you go to, that not only everybody within town talks about going there, but anybody out of town is like, hey, they got this one spot. They have this legitimate one spot called this, and it's incredible.
We did talk about Spaghetti Works the other day.
Ask Sarah Baker Hansen when she joins us on Thursday. She was the first one to alert me to Scratchtown Brewery in Ord. Stu Manji tweet said, Gary Sharp 1620, our discussion earlier in the hour about coaches, the worst coaches hired in the last decade. Mike Riley is 7th. Scott Frost is 13th on the list that is headed by Chad Morris. He says, follow up to your comment about coaches leaving the program better than they found it. Is the Nebraska baseball program in a better place now than it was leaving Bricktown Ballpark on a bad night in June in 2019?
Tough, because I do give Will Bolt credit for building a roster that people get excited about. You know, like there is something to that. The fact that, like, when baseball season begins, like, there's legitimate expectations. People are excited for the season. He has been able to get talent, but I don't know, man. The inconsistencies of what this program has been over the last 6 years have been quite startling, considering now this is the second time Nebraska has been ranked heading into a season, and then they've fallen off pretty quickly from that ranking, and then they've had to battle and fight and like the entire season to play up to the mark that we believed they could. And now, credit to him, now they are playing much better, but I still don't think this team is playing at the level that people play at. To be, they're getting there, but and it has been, they have been playing worse competition as well.
The problem with Nebraska baseball, and this is post Van Horn, Mike Anderson rode the wave for a bit, is they're so up and down. Like, you might have, like 2017, Nebraska wins the conference. They go to a regional.
Yeah.
What happens the next year? They finish 10th. They don't make it. Then what happens the next year? They make it to a regional and they're a top 3 team in the Big Ten. This is the inconsistency of last year, the late run to get to the NCAA tournament, this year being 548 games in.
Yeah.
I mean, should we bank next year that Nebraska baseball will be first, and they will have, at this time of the year, 35 to 40 wins, and we're talking about the potential of hosting at Haymarket Park? It's just so up and down, and it's so inconsistent from year to year that you would love. So this is what Erstad did. 4th, and I'm looking at the Big Ten. 4th tied for 2nd, 2nd, 8th, 2nd, 1st, 10th tied for 3rd. By the way, Darren's son, now I'm really getting old, freshman at Lincoln East, playing for that great baseball program. And then if you look at Will's run and you take out 20 because that was the COVID year that they got shut down. 1st tied for 8th, 4th, 2nd. This year they're currently what? Are they 11th today?
They're 12th today.
11th or 12th?
Yeah. So, well, look at 2023, right? You have Bryce Matthews on that team. You have Max Anderson on that team. Both of them are All-Americans. There was a very, very short list of teams who had multiple All-Americans to begin with that season. Most of them were in the SEC, and a lot of them ended up making it to Omaha, right? They were one of the very few, I think they were one of 2 teams that had multiple All-Americans on their roster, and they didn't make the playoffs. They didn't. It's not even, they didn't make a regional, they didn't make Omaha. No, they did not make the NCAA tournament, period, end of story. And so, I mean, this is, and heading into last season when they played so well and they won the Big Ten, the expectations really weren't all that high because it was like, well, this team didn't make the NCAA tournament last year and they have their two best players are gone. Yeah, and they end up winning the Big Ten.
Will's time at Nebraska is very interesting because he's got a regular season Big Ten title. He's got a postseason Big Ten title.
Mm-hmm.
He's got 2 trips to the NCAA. But when they aren't near the top of the Big Ten, they're near the 8th through the 12th.
Yeah.
Which is, I don't know, you just want consistency. That shows me that there is something from year to year wrong. But they may pull it off again. I mean, that team last year got on that team was good.
Yeah.
They just happened to drop the first game of the Big Ten tournament. They were second in the regular season in the Big Ten last year. Only 12 make it. They got 2 Big Ten series left, Purdue and Michigan. But you watch, you can't quit them.
No.
You can't quit them because you know what? You're going to talk yourself into tomorrow, the Nebraska-Creighton game tomorrow night and what that could do. And Evan's going to come on here in 30 minutes because Evan is still strong on this. You're going to go the RPI strength of schedule. Nebraska's still in the possibility of getting an at-large. And you're like, come on, man.
Yeah.
All right. 2 in the books, 2 to go. We'll talk to coming up at 9. First time she has spoken to the media. We're going to break the news to Jamie Kerry that she has been hired as the Omaha women's basketball coach. We'll see what her reaction is when we just cold call her and say, hey, ever been to Baxter Arena?
Turns out to be the John Cena prank call.
Psych. It's Gary and Matt with Jimmy on 1620 The Zone. Jimmy, how are the people in San Antonio taking the news from Friday that Greg Popovich was stepping down as the head coach after 28 years?
No. I still haven't called Dad yet because I just haven't had the heart to have that conversation and to kind of reflect and also remind him who wanted to get rid of the season tickets in December of '96 when Pop fired Bob Hill. And I said, hold on, wait. Let's see who we get first. Let's see if we do anything worth an S in the draft lottery. And then who do we draft? And then we'll make a decision. Just hold your horses. Let's take our beatings like men, and 62 of those beatings. And then on that one day, and it sucked. I remember the name Jamie Fike for a reason. He started at the 4. In fact, the previous number 21 that year was Dominique Wilkins.
Oh,
but I digress. So we keep the season tickets. June 25th, 1997, they draft Timmy Duncan. 2 years later to the day, they win their first championship. Greg Popovich saved the city of San Antonio. They might have folded the whole damn city. If the Spurs would have left San Antonio, it would have collapsed into a sinkhole. I wouldn't be here today. I'd be working at an HEB doing something simple or at a Stop and Rob or just. Did you
guys have Piggly Wigglies in Texas?
Before my time. They did. Yeah. HEB kicked everyone out of
Jimmy
town.
Comes running home in 96. Dad, they got him. This 7-footer from Wake Forest.
Oh no,
he's incredible. Dad, you got to see him.
We were listening on the car when we won the lottery. But in all seriousness, it's remarkable because you look at how everything has changed, and the stat: 303 coaches have been fired in the time that Pop has been the coach.
My Lord!
But I make jokes. The Spurs wouldn't be in San Antonio today if not for Greg Popovich and everything that he changed, and the fact that he had an imprint. To the exception of 2 years when he worked for Nelly at Golden State from 1988 until Friday, he's had a fingerprint on the franchise. And we've been very blessed over 50-something years. There haven't been a lot of years where they hadn't made the playoffs until these last few years. But we had a feeling it was coming, and I was driving home Friday, and my wife even said that she was going to wait to tell me until I got home because she didn't want me wrecking on Dodge. And I told her, I was like, have you seen the people that drive on Dodge? You're probably fine if you call me. It might have a better chance. But you think about your own personal life. I was in 8th grade that day. And shout out 8th grade. I hate math. I really did. But to go from that, and then you see where your life is and everything that happened in between. And I get it, and that's part of the reason why I understand being here and the people, the way they talk about the Huskers, the way they talk about T.O., because there's so much that encompasses that era. There's so much that encompasses memories that you have, personal memories, games and stuff. The same thing. They just all came flooding back. So I make fun because that's what I do. But it was emotional. I was sad, very grateful. I mean, that's why I can never truly complain about not winning in the NBA because, look, they won 5 championships. It was death, taxes, and 50 wins. And our Mays and Junes were going to be, we have this one complaining here about Tibbs. When did he get to the conference finals? Please, conference finals. Then, okay, then he'll talk to me. I lost count of how many damn conference finals we went to. So,
man, yeah, I get what you're talking about. I miss Vinny Del Negro. I mean, it's
Vinny Del Negro played for the Spurs and was gotten rid of by Pop.
Yeah, when you have
because he couldn't come through in the playoffs.
When you just have a coach that affects you like that, you just think about him a lot. Yours is Pop. Mine's is Vinny.
We upgraded to Mario Ellie the next year.
He's the greatest NBA coach of all time, and maybe one of the greatest influencers in the game
of
basketball.
You guys have talked about coaching trees. Pop's coaching tree. I didn't realize how massive it is, and then you see what he did. And
I love Greg. Don't get me wrong. I love Greg Popovich. I think Phil Jackson is the greatest NBA coach of all time. I mean, we're
one of the greatest at dealing with egos.
Yeah, I mean,
that's hard.
I mean. I would take Jackson over Pop just because, 11 titles, man, with 2 different teams.
Well, you're from Chicago. You're supposed to.
But that's not even that. It's honestly, it's not even about what he did in Chicago. It's the fact that he did it twice.
It should be.
The fact that he did it with 2 different franchises. To have 1 3-peat is incredible.
I'll give you one with the Lakers.
3-peats
2 eras of Lakers within that.
Is insanity. To then go to a different team and then have another 3-peat and then 6 years later, you rebuild the franchise and you get back-to-back titles.
That's the one that impresses me the most, because that team with Kobe that he led was
it was
a different team.
It was a completely
that
different
list
team.
is pretty small. So Phil Jackson, Greg Popovich, Red Auerbach, Pat Riley, and probably Steve Kerr.
Yeah, Steve Kerr from the Pop tree.
I think Kerr is probably. I don't know, man. Kerr is so tough because he's been blessed with having
Paul Westhead,
so many great teams, but I do think the 2022 title for Steve Kerr definitely
that's his best one.
Oh, by
People
far.
Forget,
but you know what? After Durant left, like there were a lot of Golden State fans who were pretty upset with Steve Kerr. And I remember, I mean,
they became Laker fans.
It never got serious, but there was enough people talking about like, is he really the guy? And him winning in 22, I mean, proved that absolutely he is. I don't know, like Spoelstra doesn't have 4. But I think very highly of Eric Spoelstra. I think very, very, and I think we also have to recognize as well, like we give Jimmy Butler a lot of credit for coaching or for leading a team to 2 NBA finals that were very high in seed, right? But Spo was the coach in that as well. And so he's made 6 NBA finals, Eric Spoelstra has. I mean, there's only won 2, but that's quite the accomplishment as well.
You know what? One of the best things that ever happened to Greg Popovich?
Tim Duncan.
Demeanor. Well, not a player on the floor is Craig Sager.
Yeah.
You know, that gruff.
Those two together had such an intertwining. And
I think what'll come out, and this is what, you know, when you're a gruff guy and you don't want anybody to say nice things about you, is when you retire, people start telling stories, and it's followed up by, oh, I don't know that Pop would like that to be out there, about coaches and what he has done that has never been public, but now it's public because he's done coaching.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
But it's always followed by, oh, I don't know if Pop would like this to be out there, because it makes Pop look like a great guy, which, you know, people in the industry say he is somebody who was not afraid to be Greg Popovich, the citizen, with an opinion or two about politics and to be the basketball coach. But Craig Sager, the you know, all of the demeanor of the ridiculous in-game interviews. But when Craig Sager opened up Greg Popovich, a lot of people saw him in a different light instead of this grouchy old guy, because you'd ask his players and they'd be like, no, he's not like that.
Tony Parker said when it's not basketball, he's a great guy.
Well, my favorite Greg Popovich story is it was in the 2010s. He's coaching San Antonio. The Spurs are in the middle of their 2010s dynasty, right? And it's September. It's preseason. And Tony Parker dives for a ball on the floor in preseason, gets the ball, calls a timeout, whatever. Pop gets all of them in a huddle at center court and says, guys, that's championship basketball right there. That's exactly why we are in the position we are in every single season and the postseason. That's what winners are all about. Hey, Tony, it's September. Don't ever dive on the floor for a basketball ever again in preseason. And then they went back to practicing.
So 2003, I was back home from school, and I was interning at KSAT, and shout out KSAT. And we were at the Spurs complex on draft night. They were not going to be keeping the pick because they were very much in pursuit of Jason Kidd that summer. And so they send the intern a photog. That's how you know that they're not going to do anything with the draft. Like none of the sports guys, hey, why don't you just go and get some sound?
Sure.
So I'm standing in there, and Pop comes in and hand on my shoulder, and just here, and people, and they're looking at him and go, hey, Pop. He goes, I heard there's Coors Light and pizza. Figure I better get my ass on in here and have some. And just walked right in and got a pizza and some. So that's the side of Pop that people didn't see. And a lot of the other stories that come out, people do not realize how weird it's going to be to not have Pop on the sideline. Nobody coaches that long at one place in anything. I mean, hardly in college anymore. No. I mean, we just finished talking earlier about how Rule wouldn't be a lifer at Nebraska. That's not a negative. That just means nobody stays anywhere 29 years. So in the professional ranks, Jerry Sloan was a close comparison.
Being, at Berkshire for 60 years is weird.
Yeah. Personally, I think Pop is very thankful to Warren Buffett because that took that's what he went. Hey, they
took the attention away from him.
It is not a shock that they had this news slip out on a Friday. If anything, they wish they'd done it at 4:59, or at least he did. But they had to do it earlier so they could announce Mitch Johnson as the new coach, which I think is a good choice. And some people down there complain about it. And I just say this guy had such a massive coaching tree, and if he says this is the guy to take over for him, I think I'm going to trust him, and we'll see. He didn't do a terrible job going 32-45 with all the injuries and everything that happened this year.
They had a good end part of the year.
By the way, have a fun game. Where on Inside the NBA, they try and guess
who he play for.
Yeah, they should do that with coaches in the NBA.
Who he coached for.
Oh my God!
Yeah,
totally.
One guy, Oklahoma City. Most people can't pick him out of a lineup.
They can't even say his name. It is so hard. Well, once you say
or like Chris Finch, if Chris Finch isn't sidelined last year because of his leg injury, and so they show him a lot more. People are like, I think he works for 3M. Yeah. I'm pretty sure he works for 3M in the Twin Cities.
Some people still think the late great Flip Saunders coaches the Wolves.
No, it's incredible when we go through like the NFL head coach picture. Like it's weird if you don't know like 2 or 3 of the guys. You're like, damn, like how do I
What's
not know?
What's wrong with me? Am I not a fan anymore?
But like if you line, I'm going to tell you something right now. A cat, like just a regular old, I follow the NBA. I watch a couple games a year. I'll tune on the playoffs. If we did a NBA coaches picture, I don't know how many. I don't think I would get that many.
Do it quick here. Rick Carlisle, you recognize. Kenny Atkinson, you do not.
No. You recognize Billy
Atkinson
Donovan.
got a raw deal with the Nets.
You for sure
But
recognize
let's talk
Billy
about guys that are in the final 8. Finch, and Kerr is a no-brainer.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Okay. Most people will not get David Alderman. Okay, they're like, not sure who that is. Head coach at Oklahoma City.
He doesn't. He wouldn't get recognized.
Stanley coach too.
Missoula, you do.
And Joe, yes. Then Thibs, yes.
Yes.
David Adelman, I know because I remember him as a little kid with Rick walking off the court in Portland. So that's weird to see. Oh man, he's a grown-up now.
And even like, I don't know, like there are some teams though where you're just kind of like, oh, didn't he coach here? Like the NBA does.
Dagnall is the one that gets me because
but the NBA
68 wins and nobody recognizes him. He's a good coach too.
I would love to know why NBA coaches, like from a front office perspective, why head coaches get recycled so much. I mean, there have been so many head coaches who have just been at so many different spots that despite the fact that they've had very limited. That's another one too.
Isn't the longest tenured now that Mike Sullivan is out from Pittsburgh and going to the Rangers, the longest tenured head coach in the NHL
is it Monty?
Is it 23 months?
No way.
About right.
Somebody said that, like, and I'm like, how long has DeBoer been in Dallas?
That's it. Well, Cooper's been.
Yeah, John Cooper's been longer.
Yeah.
All right, I'll take a quick break. But as we go to break, there is news that surrounds the Nebraska-Michigan game coming up in September. Sharon Moore has been suspended. Michigan is expected to suspend him for 2 games during the 2025 season as a self-imposed punishment in the advanced scouting case. A Pete tweet. Moore is expected to miss week 3 and 4, Central Michigan and Nebraska. This would allow him to coach week 2 at Oklahoma, his alma mater, where he played on the offensive line. So
hammer the Huskers that day.
This is being reported first by Pete Thamel that Sharon Moore will be suspended for 2 games, and that one of them will be the Nebraska game on week 4.
Wow, really?
There you go.
And not New Mexico to begin the year?
Well, I think he has to do them
back to back.
Oh,
damn. That's big. That's big news.
Yeah, I don't know where I heard that. Hockey Dad. Yeah, Rod Brindamore has been in Carolina for a while. But that is, the NHL recycles like none other.
Like, hey, it's Lindy Ruff again.
Hey, it's
Ted Nolan.
Hey, look, it's a game 7, and you have a 2-goal lead. Hey, there's Jim Montgomery.
They literally rather pull analysts off of TNT and ESPN than hire like up-and-coming coaches.
All right, if you are down on Nebraska and now you're thinking, man, the Oracle is gone, we are going to save something. Us Nebraskans are going to save something. And we're going to do it not once, but twice. We'll tell you what we're going to do because this may be news to y'all. You're going to have to pull out your checkbook on 1620 The Zone. Again, news out of the Big Ten. First reported by Pete Thamel, Dan Wetzel, who is at ESPN now as well. Michigan is expected to suspend coach Sherrone Moore 2 games during the 25 season as a self-imposed punishment in the advanced scouting case because Sherrone Moore played at Oklahoma, and the games have to be back-to-back. It looks like it'll be week 3 and then week 4, and week 4 for Michigan is in Lincoln against Nebraska. Also news, politics and sports have combined.
This should go well.
This looks really, really cool. The 2027 NFL Draft will be in Washington, D.C. You know, the Commanders, the football team, the formerly Redskins are moving back to D.C., to RFK. They're going to tear down
the
RFK.
Stadium, not the nut job.
Oh, RFK looks... Yeah. It's still standing, but they're moving back into the city. Now they will host the draft in 2027. Good catch.
Oh, geez.
It's empty. It's an empty cup. It's an empty cup.
Visuals are going to be amazing.
Incredible.
Mall. So it is going to be held on the National Mall where the Washington Monument stands.
That is so cool.
Hello. And at that time of night,
it's going to be beautiful. And also, too, talk about a franchise that has done a complete 360 in the last 2.5, 3 years. I mean, we were at a point where the Washington Commanders were not a joke, but in the dumps of like their stadium's absolutely terrible. Their owner is awful. Anytime we talked about the Commanders, we talked about them in a negative way, whether it be the name or the investigations or the product in the field. And in 1 year, they go from being the ha-ha joke to, man, this is a hot, young team with a future franchise quarterback, and they have a good owner who invests a lot of money, who's going to build a brand new stadium. And now it's like, wow, DC's like a destination for NFL fans. And it's like, talk about a passionate fan base that had been absolutely just stomped on for 2 decades. This is awesome. I love that they're going to DC.
Shout out John Schreiner.
Yeah. I love that they're doing it.
Jaden Daniels, a quarterback. The guy that's coming to the Nebraska, Trey Taylor, mimics Jaden Daniels. Ooh. Hopefully he doesn't have hopefully mom is not like Jaden Daniels' mom.
And hopefully he doesn't have the injury history that Jaden Daniels had.
Okay, so while the football team in the nation's capital has revitalized the economy, Nebraskans are going to save Vegas. You're not going to see this in the review journal today, but Nebraskans are going to save Las Vegas. This is the thing. If you're in Las Vegas and you go out at 4 a.m, nobody's out anymore. But if you get up at 7, there's a lot of people out. It's really weird. But you know what? We had COVID, and Vegas thought that everybody was going to come back, so they jacked up all the prices. And it's not working out so well. So they said,
bring back the $5 tables.
They said, Nebraskans, come save us. Big news the other day. No doubt that Ryan Kalkbrenner is going to be invited to the Combine, but Bryce Williams being invited to the Combine is a huge deal.
Massive.
So be out there watching the Summer League. I'm going to see Cooper Flagg. I'm going to see Ryan Kalkbrenner. I'm going to see possibly Baylor Shireman.
Wow.
Then I'm going to see Keisei Tominaga. Then I'm going to see Bryce Williams. Okay? So there will be Nebraskans that will be out there in July. And you know what? Then we might hang around and go to Big Ten Media Days. So we're spending money. We're helping the Vegas economy. But then the biggest part, and you got some choices to make, folks.
Uh-oh, here we go.
And I'm starting to look at flights. We don't know what the kick time is for Houston Christian, Nebraska, but over the weekend, after just a god-awful, if I paid for it, I'd want my money back Alvarez fight against some Cuban who didn't want to fight and just wanted to collect a paycheck.
Yeah.
It was an awful fight. But that's what Canelo Alvarez has done for about 3 years now. He's protected the brand. He's went and got the paycheck. Well, not so fast, my friends, because it's finally come to fruition. And finally, we have something that we think is
official
on paper. Yeah. We need Dana White, who's going to promote this, and which is a big deal.
Massive.
So on September 12th, a Friday night at Allegiant Stadium, otherwise known as the Roomba. It's a Friday night before a Nebraska home game.
Ooh.
There are Southwest flights that would bring you back the following morning, but you know how depressing that flight is back on Southwest from Vegas to Omaha? It smells. Everyone just reeks of despair.
Defeat.
Yes.
Empty pocketbooks.
September 12th, Alvarez, Bud Crawford in Vegas.
Incredible.
Now, we're not just talking... We're not talking T-Mobile, where you get 17,000. We're talking 68,000 seats that will be available for this.
Crazy.
And there will be plenty of, there'll be a huge amount of Alvarez fans, but there will be plenty of Nebraskans that will travel and once again this year save the city of Vegas.
this is the first true
Just move the
boxing
Nebraska Houston Christian
super fight in. It's the biggest. It's the biggest boxing super fight since McGregor Mayweather, for sure. And we've had like when Tank fought Ryan Garcia, like that was a big fight, and when and Haney was in a couple of big fights, but there hasn't been a super fight where like it's gonna be in the front of the paper in quite some time in boxing in general. And Dana White, everybody knows him as a UFC guy. Dana White loves boxing. Like Dana White is very much a boxing guy as well. This is massive. It's not just massive this fight is happening. It is massive that Dana White and TKO is promoting it. It is incredible for the sport because if there is any organization and any promoter that will go the lengths to get the best fighters to fight each other in boxing, it's Dana White and it's TKO. And they know that boxing, look, the problem with boxing is that everyone's confused. Like, you don't know. There's way too many titles. It's not organized. Promoting these guys. Like, you have some incredible fighters. There were some good fights on ESPN last night that I was watching. Some boxing matches.
I know, yeah.
No, nobody knew about it. Like, I had no clue that was going on, and I had a great time watching it. So to get this engine, not only just behind this fight, but behind the sport is I'm excited.
Sport's done Bud. Well. Sport has done Bud dirty. When he fights on September 12th, it will be 13 months since he last fought.
Jeez.
He's not getting any younger, and he's going to have to go up 2 weight classes.
Yeah, it's going to be tough.
But I'm glad they do have, as you mentioned, Dana White behind it because Bud's not a big promoter.
Mm-hmm.
Bud would just like to get in the ring and box.
Yeah.
Alvarez will promote, but having Dana behind this, it is the fight that the sport needs. And if I'm Southwest Airlines, I am adding an extra flight out. And I'm adding an extra early flight back.
Absolutely.
Because
extra bags on the flight too.
And by then they're going to be charging.
I know.
Is that the end of this month?
Yeah. Well, I meant the puke bags, but yes, they'll probably charge.
But it will be, there will be, because this is the fight. This is the fight for Bud. This is the legacy fight that he has been clamoring for and has a chance to just walk off as one of the greatest of all time. There will be a lot of people from here that go out there on a Friday night. I mean, I imagine that we will be, after hours, the last couple of Bud Crawford fights, they've been out there.
So another thing too, and you bring up the promoting aspect of Bud Crawford, I think pound for pound, Bud is the better fighter than Canelo. And if you kind of go down the resumes, they're very similar, but I would give the edge to Bud, right? And just what he's done, especially recently in terms of career. But Canelo is the superstar. He is the name that everybody knows. When this fight comes, it's going to be Canelo, and then people know who Bud is. But Canelo is the superstar. But that's why I think it's even more important that Dana White is a part of this, because Dana White knows how damn good Bud Crawford is and how big it would be if Bud Crawford were to win this boxing match. So if Dana White, I wouldn't be surprised if in a lot of his promoting and Dana White talking about the sport, if he focuses a lot on Bud, if he, praises Bud, if he tries to hype up Bud to the crowd, because he deserves it and Bud deserves that attention. It's just not something that he's gotten to the level of Canelo, but it'll be important to raise, try and get him on even playing ground. And I think it could be done easily just because of how damn good Bud Crawford has been.
Let me see.
But interesting too. So Dana White doesn't like stadium fights. He likes arenas. He likes 20,000, capacity arenas just because it's more intimate, and you get the noise and everything like that. It's interesting. I mean, I know that you have to put this in a stadium, but I think it's going to. I don't know how many big football stadium matches that Dana White's ever promoted, which is another interesting aspect of all this.
Okay, here. So there is by the way, the tickets are really cheap right now for September. I'm going September 11th to September 13th. You can leave Vegas at 7:35. You'd be back in Omaha at 12:15. Nebraska, Houston Christian. Watch that one on the couch. You'd be back in time for that. All right. September 12th. At the Roomba. Mm-hmm. Nebraskans are saving Vegas. There'll be a lot of Nebraska and Creighton basketball fans that'll sneak into Vegas for the summer to watch the Summer League.
They're going to open a Runza in Vegas. Make a killing.
Ooh, can you imagine? A Runza on the Strip? What the reaction would be to people that have never experienced a runza?
I don't know what this is, but this is amazing.
I mean,
it's the spot.
Nothing better than putting that in your stomach and just having it sit there for a while after losing a couple of grand and
so negative
and
about
paying.
The runs.
Can you imagine? You just spent $300 on 3 drinks in Vegas, and then you're having a $9 runza or $4 or $6 runza.
In runza,
how satisfying
in Vegas,
that would be.
Vegas, it would probably be about $9. Mm-hmm. Yeah. Everything is higher in Vegas right now.
Time change. Yeah.
Now they're going to learn. They're going to learn. Then the A's will get there, and they'll have a bunch of cheap baseball fans, and they'll have to drop the prices. All right, Evan Bland will join us next. Talk some baseball. We'll talk some football now that we're into football season, and news out of Michigan. Wow. Check the line. What does that do to the Nebraska-Michigan line on September 20th?
So much for the night game.
Probably a 4.5.
My God, if you lose that game, they don't even have their head coach. What are we doing here?
But if you win that game, it's like, man, they didn't have their head coach. It doesn't really count.
You actually get knocked down in the ratings.
Yeah.
Evan stops by next. Coming up at the top of the hour, we'll introduce you to the brand new Omaha women's basketball coach, Jamie Kerry. She will join us. Comes from UTSA. Had a hell of a basketball career on the floor. A really, really good hire for Adrian Dow for the women's basketball program. We'll talk to her also about how this goes with the roster, which doesn't have very many people on it right now. But we're looking forward to talking to Coach Kerry for the first time. She'll talk to all of you. That's coming up at 9 on 1620 The Zone. All right, Cinco de Mayo, we welcome in Evan Bland from the Omaha World-Herald. Good morning.
Morning, guys.
Hey, what was different about Nebraska baseball this week compared to the last time we talked on Monday? It seemed like they're following a script.
Yeah, very little. The writing's getting lazy, I think, at this point in the season. It's and it's flipped from what it was earlier. Now it's the Friday nights are sort of up in the air, and you feel better about Saturday and kind of their ability to cobble it together on Sunday. I don't know how much has changed necessarily in terms of like postseason outlook, what we know about this team. The one thing that's been consistent about Nebraska baseball all year has been just a lack of long winning streaks and long losing streaks. And every time you think one thing about them, they do something else. So I think that's kind of where we still are here into May.
Evan, it seems like let's track back the last 5 seasons here for Nebraska baseball. When it seems like when we expected a lot from the team in the preseason, they ended up being a little underwhelming. But when we had seasons in the preseason, there have been seasons where we didn't expect as much from this team, and they end up winning the Big Ten regular season title, or they end up winning the Big Ten tournament and go into the NCAA tournament. So my question to you is, why is it do you have an answer for why is it when it seems like we have high expectations for this team, they underdeliver, and when we don't have expectations for this team, they way overdeliver?
Yeah, it's confounding in a lot of ways, and it's not just locally either. I mean, you think about this year, Nebraska was preseason top 25 team. Usually they zig when Big Ten coaches zag too. They tend to be way off from expectations within their own conference. I mean, I don't know. Like it just seems like there's something different every year. Like the reason that they spiked last year in part was because they hit on like every junior college player that they brought in, and it was hard to maybe prognosticate or project that was going to happen. The reason they fell short of the expectations to this point this year, I mean, you can start with the injury to Mason McConaughey. That didn't help, or to Tucker Timmerman. But I think too, there was a lot of maybe regression or plateauing from a lot of the offense. Some of the pitching didn't take that next step. So like every time there's like some inertia or momentum, or you think, okay, they're going to build off of what they did.
Yeah.
Then it just doesn't seem to happen. And then, the 21 season was another one where they far exceeded expectations and ran away with the Big Ten. And that was another year where they had guys who were dudes who just kind of broke out, Spencer Schwellenbach and so many others. And so it's just, I think part of it's baseball is hard. Part of it has been the portal era when you have so much turnover every year. I think the thing that's most confounding about this team was that so much of the lineup was back. And, in retrospect, maybe we didn't put enough stock in Josh Caron's impact and Brett Sears on a Friday night going 7 every time out and setting up the bullpen. So I think that's kind of where it is. And I think too, there's the variable of the new Big Ten and how challenging that is, and the schedule. I think maybe I didn't do a good enough job communicating early in the season how difficult of a schedule they have in terms of not just caliber of opponents, but logistically as well. So I think all that kind of goes into it, but at the end of the day, it doesn't necessarily add to the fan experience if you're expecting another run near the top of the Big Ten, and here they are trying to finish in the top 12.
All right, I give credit to you because I have been I don't want to think about an at-large because my eyeballs tell me no, but the metrics continue to say maybe. And you've brought this up that of Indiana last year and how Nebraska keeps kind of hanging around. Their strength of schedule is really good. So 11th in the league, which gets you inside of the 12 that come to Omaha later this month. 64th in the RPI, a big one tomorrow night with Creighton. Michigan is ahead of them in the RPI and ahead of them in the standings. And then they finish at Purdue, which could only bring pain. And then there's the odd setup where I think the max games you would play in the Big Ten tournament would be 4. Like, what's the path look like that this could be a consideration in 2 weeks that, Nebraska could get into the NCAA tournament?
Right. So they just won the weekend with Minnesota, and that boosted them like 6 to 8 spots to 64, like you mentioned. If you win the series with Michigan, that's going to give you a little bit more juice, probably into the mid to upper 50s in terms of RPI, roughly. You go to Purdue, like you mentioned, and it's not a great Purdue team, but you're also not talking about a team with an RPI in the 200s. I mean, it's in the mid, I think, 150s. And so if you win a road series like that, that probably gets you into the low 50s, right around that range. And then you go into the Big Ten tournament, and you're talking about a league now that's the third best RPI league in college baseball. That's changed because of the West Coast additions. So the opportunities are still there. I was doing a little research this morning, and in terms of RPI, Nebraska, where it sits right now, is closer to where it was in 2019, 2017, kind of on the fringe, than it was in 22. Everyone always talks about the 22 team that was such a disappointment after winning the league. That team was well out of it. That team at this point had an RPI in the 170s. Jeez. So a huge difference from that to where they are now in the low 60s. And I get it. Like, people, you can get frustrated with kind of the up and down results of the things, and the midweeks have kind of been hit and miss. And I think a lot of people are at the point where they just don't really want to care about the midweek with Creighton. You want to get back to the weekend and do this thing. But I mean, there's no doubt. I mean, there's still, this game Tuesday is important in terms of that resume. Creighton's right around where they are in the low 60s, I think, in terms of RPI. So it's a team that's hasn't been above 500 since early February, and they have a chance to do that on Tuesday. That'd be a big deal considering the strength of schedule. And maybe it's one of those teams that you don't want to play late in the year because they did it last year, and it's a bunch of veterans and all the rest. So it's taken them longer. I'm not saying that they're going to do it, but the path absolutely is there if you keep winning weekends, and maybe you win one Tuesday against Creighton to be there.
When you look at this team, like this hot streak that they've been on has been a lot about some bats heating up, but I feel like this pitching staff, from the rotation to the bullpen, has been really impressive as well. How have you seen this pitching staff develop over the last couple of months?
Well, Ty Horn's gotten better. He's kind of adding a little bit more of a cutter, and I think he's just kind of gone through it for the last year and a half, and this is the point where some of that's starting to pay off. So, I mean, he's big. Really, the Saturday game with Horn and then Tucker Timmerman, to me, was kind of the most obvious example of how things have come along. I mean, they really missed Timmerman from that first weekend in February when he takes the comebacker to the face and he's out for 2+ months. I mean, that's a guy that they would bring in first or second every weekend with a lead and a high leverage spot. So he goes 3 and looks really good. And he's kind of got that bulldog mentality too, where he kind of brings everybody else along with him in that way. Some of the other guys I think have had kind of quieter recent weeks. I mean, Gavin Blackowitz is a guy who is a freshman and has gotten better as the season's gone along. Casey Dice has been pretty good. Luke Broderick's been pretty solid. So you kind of get a better sense of some of the guys who they're trusting. I mean, Drew Christo had another couple of key moments last weekend for this team as a senior. So I think they're figuring out really who's in that circle of trust, who they want to bring in certain situations. And again, I think for this team, it all is going to start with what do the starting pitchers give you, and then does that allow you to set up the bullpen in a favorable way? So when Horn goes, I think it was 6 on Saturday, then you can hand it right off to Tucker Timmerman. He can finish that thing. If Horn's doing what he did a month ago and he's out in the 3rd or the 4th, you got to find a way to bridge that gap in the middle innings, or you're not feeling great late. So I just think that the length that the starters have been able to give, particularly Horn, Will Walsh for the most part, although he's struggled the last couple times out, that those have been big for Nebraska when it has a limited bullpen, when it can save its top guys for the key moments. I think that's part of what we've seen in recent weeks.
It's just like we talked now for multiple weeks. You don't know what you're going to get. Like Luke Broderick is the prime example of, okay, pitching well, has a hiccup, but they've shown some resiliency, because if you go from Friday night to yesterday, you're like, okay, does that make sense? It's just look that's kind of like the whole thing of the whole year. You don't know what you're going to get.
Right. Yeah. I mean, it's and you got to credit their ability to bounce back. I mean, I've been out there and for a number of Fridays when it just feels like they've kind of been gutted by what's happened, and they've lost some games to teams that they shouldn't have. I mean, losing on a Friday night to Northwestern, losing on a Friday night to Minnesota, like those, that just shouldn't really happen for Nebraska. They have too many resources and have too much talent for that to kind of play out that way. Usually, those are the games or the teams that you lose to later in the weekend when some of the depth evens out, and you know, you just don't really know. It's not as much of a sure thing on Sunday. So I think it's been frustrating in those moments, certainly. But they do have kind of just that attitude of a fighter where they have been able to shake it off and come back on Saturday and Sunday. And like, that's an attitude that's so much more valuable in baseball, right? Where you do have that chance within the next day to come back and redeem yourself. And it feels like Nebraska hasn't been a team that's kind of dwelled on its emotions and said, woe is me. I mean, it's true that they don't have a long winning streak, but they also haven't lost more than 3 or 4 in a row all year. And usually it's been like 1 or 2. And so you got to give them credit in that regard for being able to bounce back. And I do think there have been many moments this year where they could have just said, you know what, we don't have it. Like, let's play out the string, finish it out. And they, to their credit, they haven't done that. And so we'll see how that all kind of plays out here at the end. But just to lose on a Friday and to win the series the way they have here recently, I do think it speaks to just that mindset that they have, even if the talent isn't overwhelming the way that some of their better teams have been recently.
Evan, when you switching over to football here, I'm looking at this team, and I think Nebraska has a ton of talent, but they have a lot of talent filling big holes left by people who have left, whether it be the transfer portal or graduating or getting drafted. And those guys who are filling those holes are talented, but don't have a ton of proven production. When you look at this roster and you look over those guys who have to fill those holes, do you find yourself being more optimistic or pessimistic about what they can produce this season?
I mean, I think it depends on the position a little bit there. Like, I feel like they've upgraded in a major way at receiver. That's a spot where you feel like they probably got multiple transfers who are going to come in and start and be major playmakers, joining Jacory Barney, who's returning. I still think defensive line's a spot where you need to see it a little bit more. I think Riley Van Poppel, I mean, incredibly impressive as a person and just physically what he was able to do this spring. But the fact is he hasn't been the guy at the college level yet. So you wonder what that's like. Some of the guys they brought in, I think, could be important pieces, Williams Winery or Gabe Moore, but we haven't seen that at the Division I level consistently. So I think that's an area where you kind of feel like, okay, I like the moves. There's some upside there, but you don't know how it's going to shake out. I guess I kind of gravitate, especially in the transfer class, toward guys who it looks like are going to be leaders of this team, not just in terms of production, but like they're going to set the tone vocally and in all those intangible ways. Like, I think Rocco Spindler could be one of those guys.
Yeah.
I think Marquise Watson-Trent, like, you talk to that dude. I mean, he's been through it at the college level. That's a leader. I think Dane Key could be one of those guys. So it feels like they've added some players who can help kind of just steer this team from a more of a big picture perspective. I do think the offensive line is one where you talk about Spindler and Pritchett too, who you feel really good about just plugging those guys in and they're going to go and do their thing and probably not going to be too terribly high maintenance. So yeah, I mean, I think in general it was a very strong off season for Nebraska in terms of the transfers, for the most part, are who they thought they would be from what they've seen in the spring. And then some of the younger guys, like you talk about, like that's where the value of retention comes in, is so many of these guys got a taste. Maybe they were rotational or they had their moments last season and now they're ascending. Guys like, Vincent Shavers or I mentioned Van Poppel or guys who, Jacory Barney, who now have been through it for a year now. They know what to expect. So I do feel like Nebraska's in a pretty good place there. And, maybe there's another portal edition to be had here in the coming months. I mean, a year ago at this time, they still didn't have Sear Wright on the team. So it's not impossible to have an impact ad, but it feels like in terms of talent and just the character of the guys they brought in, you got to feel good about the direction they're headed.
Hey, so in backyards around the state, kids are playing football, and one's Dylan Raiola, and he's throwing to Ja'Cory Barney. Then on the playground, there's one kid that mows down his buddy and stands over him and goes, "I'm Vincent Shavers." Give me the next household name that's on this roster that people will be either imitating in the backyard or on the playground, or people will be talking about around the cubicle.
Well, I mean, it's going to be, it'll be a playmaker, high profile guy. I think, it could be one of those receivers that we're talking about. I mean, Barney's obviously back, but I think Dane Key as a sort of an X type receiver could be somebody. I mean, I was looking at his film again from what he did at Kentucky, and this isn't a guy who just sort of dominated at the lower level or was catching the ball over defenses and running. He made contested catches against SEC defenses, found ways to get open. Quarterback was good, but not the reason that he was making all these catches. That's a guy who I'll just be really curious to see how that translates with a guy like Raiola. I think he could be somebody who could be in for a big season. Emmett Johnson I know he's been the starter, but what he did down the stretch in the Dana Holgerson offense, you extrapolate that over a full season, and that's a guy who could rush for 1,000 yards and be a threat in the passing game and have a bigger role than he has. I think those are a couple of guys offensively. Defensively, it's hard to say kind of where maybe that star player would come from. Maybe Deshaun McCullough, if his ability to move up from where he had been as sort of a coverage linebacker and now being more of an edge rusher, if that move translates well, I mean, that's somebody who maybe could be getting after the quarterback quite a bit and somebody that people are excited about. And you mentioned Vincent Shavers. I mean, it could be Vincent Shavers.
Yeah.
We saw what he did in the Pinstripe Bowl, but he wasn't a full season guy by any means. If he's doing what he did in New York City in the Big Ten, that's a guy who could really raise his profile quickly. He's got a really, I think, energetic, magnetic personality, demonstrative on the field, but in a positive way. So I think there are a lot of candidates. Those are some of them I'd put out there.
Yeah, there's some interesting names there that'll be frontline guys. Evan, as always, we appreciate it. We'll see you tomorrow night at Haymarket Park for a big one.
Sounds good. See you guys. Thanks.
Thanks, Evan Bland, Nebraska and Creighton tomorrow night. What about Carter Nelson?
I like that. And this dates back to our conversation about the importance of Nebraska prospects hitting, right? And becoming how that's good for the state when Nebraska prospects hit and they become really good football players that then the coaching staff is going to start looking toward more guys to bring in. McGahee, I think, is one for me that I immediately think of. But I think it's a great question on your part because it does bring up something interesting. When you look at this roster, I do think they're pretty deep, and I do think that they have a lot of talent. But one thing that they are missing is a on-the-field superstar, a guy who's coming back, and they're going to be a preseason All-American or preseason All-Big Ten first-team guy. There's a lot of good, but they don't – right now, Nebraska doesn't have that one great guy. We have people we think, but it's not established yet. That needs to happen this season.
All right, we'll shift gears. We will introduce you to the newest addition to the state of Nebraska coaching landscape, the new women's basketball coach at Omaha, Jamie Kerry. She's about to find out that she has been hired. It's a new little bit we're doing on the show. We'll talk to the queen of the 40 acres back in the day. Next on 1620 The Zone. All right, we were going to try this really cool thing. We were going to tell our next guest that she'd been hired as the Omaha women's basketball coach, but unfortunately they ruined the surprise yesterday. We welcome in, for the first time that all of you get to hear from the new head women's Mav, Jamie Kerry, who was officially hired yesterday as the 10th coach all-time in program history. First of all, congratulations and welcome to Omaha, Coach.
Congrats.
Oh, good morning. Good morning, everybody. I really appreciate it. I couldn't be more excited, and thanks for having me on this morning.
All right. So you have had quite a career as a player and a coach, and the people that you have worked for, and most recently as an associate head coach at UTSA. You were born in Hutchinson, Kansas, so you're familiar with the area. But from playing basketball at Stanford to playing in Austin to the WNBA and then coaching out in Colorado, then back in Texas. What was appealing when this job opened up? What was appealing so much that you said, this would be the place I want to have my first Division I head coaching job?
Great question. Honestly, I think Omaha is a fantastic city, first of all. Recruiting obviously is a lifeblood of any program. And when you're in a city such as Omaha, with a great city and so many regional ties and great basketball in the area, I think that is really appealing. UNO is obviously a great school, has a really up and coming and hot athletic department right now. I mean, you look at the success across all the sports and softball most recently, men's basketball last year. It's hard to not fall in love with what's going on at UNO and want to be a part of it. And I think the other thing that's really critical is the vision of Adrian. Yeah. He's incredibly passionate athletic director, and obviously leadership of Chancellor Lee and all of those things. It just makes the situation really, really intriguing.
Coach Matt McMaster here. I want to congratulate you on getting this job, and obviously a coach now, but you had one heck of a career playing as a player, 4 seasons in the WNBA. I want to know, when did you as a player realize, hey, coaching is something that I want to do. This is something that I could be good at. This is something I want to sink my teeth in. Was there a moment or a season that you thought, hey, this is my future could be, past just playing?
Yeah, it's interesting you asked that. Growing up, the reason I originally went to Stanford is because I wanted to get into computer science. Wow. And my brain is very analytical and data-based. And so that's the reason I went to Stanford, and that's the direction I thought I was going to go. And oddly enough, I was with the Connecticut Sun. We were playing in Chicago, and it was the game right before All-Star break. And I received a random phone call from a guy that I played pickup with when I was in high school, and he had taken over an athletic director position out of high school in Denver, and he asked me to coach his varsity team. And I went back to Colorado during the All-Star break, and I sat down and had coffee with him, and I did it as a favor, and wow. I've been coaching ever since, and I just completely fell in love with it. So to this day, I appreciate you, Lee Peters, for that phone call.
You played in college 2 incredible coaches at Stanford and Texas, but you also played for somebody that is well known in this community for his time in the CBA as the head coach of the Racers, and he still is involved in the community, is Mike Thibault. What did he mean to your career in the WNBA?
Oh, Coach T means everything to me. And he actually was one of my first phone calls regarding this job, along with Scott Hawk, who also, I don't know if you remember that name or not, but he also is in the Omaha community, and both of them have been sending me numbers of people to reach out to. But both of those 2 men mean the world to me. And I still call Coach T to this day for advice. And he took a chance on me to be his backup point guard for the Connecticut Sun, and I'm forever indebted. But more so, I really enjoyed how his brain worked. He is amazing on the clipboard, his strategy, and it just really opened my eyes to another level of coaching. And he doesn't know it, and hopefully someday I'll tell him, but my style of coaching and where I've gone with some of my coaching goes back to my days with Coach T, but just a phenomenal mind in this game, but also a great person.
Coach, you've been, a lot of different places in the country, whether it be California, Arizona. You played high school basketball in Colorado. You're the 1999 Gatorade Player of the Year in Colorado. I want to make sure that everybody knows that. But one place that you established roots in was Texas, right? And coming from your last job at UTSA. Should the state of Texas, should the Lone Star State expect, some roots to be planted there and expect the Omaha recruiting trail to be going through there?
Well, it's a great, easy flight from a lot of cities in Texas to Omaha. There's so much talent in the state of Texas.
Yeah.
And obviously I have a lot of connections there. So I definitely will be open to recruiting that area for sure.
Jamie Kerry, the brand new Omaha women's basketball coach, joining us here on Gary and Matt. All right, now let's get to the reality. And there's a lot of people that are excited, and I know Adrian and the athletic department is very, very excited to get you here and get you ingrained in what, as you alluded to, a lot of momentum going on with Omaha athletics now on the men's and women's side. But the stark reality is this is a women's program that hasn't had a winning season since 16-17. It's had a rough couple of years. The roster has gone through some changes. There hasn't been as many people in Baxter Arena. You inherit this job as your first D1 job, and you're very, very excited and extremely qualified. Where do you start to getting Omaha women's basketball in a conference where they're getting mentioned with South Dakota and then the juggernaut South Dakota State?
Yeah, I think the first thing is I love a challenge. We just came from UTSA and very similar situation in a lot of ways. And going through the process of that build was one of the most rewarding things that I've experienced in my career as a player or coach. So super appealing to me. I think the first thing is jumping in and getting to know the new group. So that's something I've already starting to build the process of learning and understanding my current roster and obviously building upon that for us to have a competitive team come fall. Second piece, obviously, is staffing. I want to put great people around our players that can develop them on the court, off the court. So that piece will be really, really critical. And then I just can't wait to get to campus so that I can jump into the community. I think having a presence in Omaha is going to be really critical. And I would love to get people excited about women's basketball and be along for the journey of this build. And getting people back in Baxter Arena and getting the student section, the maniacs being maniacs and all of those great things. So I'm just ready to jump both feet in and get to work.
Hey, this is more of a broader question about the sport. So the WNBA is getting to start up again, and we're seeing exhibition games that are being carried on TV. Yesterday, over in Iowa City, Caitlin Clark comes back. They got 15,000 people. Tickets are going for nearly $600. And we know what kind of impact she has had. You are somebody that played at two great programs at Stanford and Texas. You're one of the best ever to play on the 40 acres. And women's basketball back then was there. It was extremely talented. I look at the 03 Final Four, which you played in, and the amount of talent that the four teams had. Let's go 20 years past that. And you're in the sport. You've been in the sport in the pros. You've been in the sport now in college. How can you even put into words your sport, how it has grown in about 20 years to where arenas are being sold out? Caitlin Clark is the thing, but there are so many other players that get attention that we talk about women's basketball in the WNBA and college like we never have before.
I tell you what, I'm so proud. It's come, women's basketball has come such a long ways. I sit and watch the Final Four on the TV, and women's basketball players are on the commercials. And, you watch these arenas filled up. You watch little girls, little boys with jerseys on. I walked into our rec center the other day, and there was a young man that had a Caitlin Clark jersey on. You wouldn't have seen that 20 years ago. And I think it's absolutely remarkable. I think that, in particular, ask about why Omaha is appealing. I think area of the country is super excited about basketball, and Caitlin Clark has driven a lot of that. Yeah. And, I'm all for it. I think it's an exciting time to be in women's basketball. But, having been through the grind of being a player and getting people in the stands and all of those things, I am just super proud. And, we built it at UTSA. I think we had 100 people in the stands our first game. And, in our championship game at the end of the season this year, we had 2,300. It was a school record. So I'm striving for the same thing in Omaha. I want to set some records and make history along the way.
As a coach, what do you hope you're known for? When a former player talks about you, when one of your former players talks about just your coaching style, what do you hope they say?
That's a great question. And I hope if you ask any of my former players, they'll first go to how much I care about them. Mm-hmm. I coach because I want to make an impact. I want to make an impact on young people. I had so many people. I mean, you asked me about Coach T, Karen Aston. Some of these people that have just made such an impact on my life that I know I can go to them at any point. And that's what I want as a coach. I want to make an impact. I want to care about the young women in my program. I want to help them be, yes, great basketball players, but I want them to be successful professionally. I want them to be able to go out into the community, whether it's Omaha or wherever they're from, and be productive citizens, and be happy doing whatever that is from a professional standpoint. So I'm really about the growth and the caring and the developing and the maturing and all of those things that I think our young people really need right now.
Do you remember the last time you hooped it up in Nebraska at the Devaney Center? Do you remember what you did in that game?
I don't remember, but I know we won.
Yeah, you won big. You had a nice game. That was
How'd I do?
I mean, you maybe didn't play much, but you had 8 points, 4 rebounds, and 3 assists.
That's a good stat line.
Yeah, not bad. I'm surprised I had 4 rebounds. That's awesome.
Are you saying that you'd like to just stay a little bit further out away from the basket?
Well, I mean, there's some big girls in there.
People will, because you'll get asked this, and the question that Matt asked, like, what will be a style?
Yeah.
Like, what will set Omaha women's basketball apart when they come to watch you? Be like, oh, wow, I got to have my head on a swivel like I'm at a tennis match or something along those lines.
Sure.
Well, I hope our tempo is similar to having your head on a swivel with tennis. I like to play with great pace. I think the game, especially you asked about women's basketball and how much it's progressed. I think it's an up and down game. I think it's physical and fast, and there's a lot of space now to play in. So I really want to have a lot of space. The old saying, spacing is offense and offense is spacing. I believe in that wholeheartedly. And I really want to put the ball up. I want to shoot the ball better. And get some players that really have some talent from deep, and and then on the defensive end, extremely active. I love to play, man to man, player to player, however you want to say it, and take away the other team's strengths. And I think one thing I've learned from Karen through the years is how important rebounding is. Every team I've been with her, we've been in the top 20 in the country in rebounding. And it really changes the game. And the other thing that the rebounding does is it allows you to have that pace. So those are some things that I'm looking forward to. But again, I think my teams are going to play really hard and gritty and have a personality and be fun to watch. So if you're a fan, you're going to appreciate how hard these players are going to play.
Well, congratulations. It's a great spot for your first Division I head coaching job. I know that you'll put together a great staff, a fun team, and you'll get to know the men's side as well. Crutch and his staff, they'll be great. And so congratulations and welcome to Omaha.
I appreciate it, Gary and Matt. Thank you so much for having me on, and go Mavs.
Hey, thank
Congrats,
you. That's Coach Kerry, who is a member of the Hall of Honor at UT. Jimmy knows her background. So 2003, they played in the Final Four. They won the Big 12 championship. She was a finalist for the Nancy Lieberman National Point Guard of the Year, the Margaret Wade Trophy, and the Naismith Award. She was NCAA Women of Honor or Women of Year nominee. Two-time All-Big 12 selection, shot 42% from the floor, 1,000 points, and she is on the top 10 list on many categories at the 40 Acres.
Yeah, we've crossed paths actually a number of times. When you sent the thing yesterday, I was like, wait, I know her. And so we have a lot of mutual friends, both down in San Antonio and then also in Austin as well.
Look, if you are a fan of Omaha Athletics, I implore you to go and look at her current bio on the athletic department website because it's absolutely incredible. Just everything that she's accomplished as a player and then parlaying that into being a coach.
Yeah, I said Adrian hit it out of the park, and people will see that.
Well, I mean, look, we talk about having all three men's teams in the NCAA tournament. We came close this year with Omaha making it for the first time.
She'll have Omaha in the tournament within 4 years.
Whoa. Wow. That would make a lot of people happy because you're
incredible.
In a state where, Flan's not going away. Amy is doing her thing in Nebraska. I mean,
buy your stock now.
The Omaha women's basketball program has fallen completely off. People don't go to the games. People don't stay on the roster. I know they don't have a lot of players on the roster right now. But it's a great fit in knowing her background and knowing what they're looking for. But they need to make women's basketball at Omaha relevant again.
I love
every other sport from what Mike Hurd is doing with softball.
Yeah.
By the way, great year for the Hurd brothers. Bill wins a state title in Gretna. Mike gets the regular season title this past weekend, and they're the number 1 seed in the tournament coming up this week up in Brookings. You have Matt Buttermore, what he has done. I mean, they're just it's a good run right now, and she'll fit in really, really well. But they need to make Omaha women's basketball matter. And that hasn't been the case the last couple of years.
I love to hear fast pace. I love that. I mean, just get a style of play that are going to get people in seats and that are going to have them enjoying watching basketball, and that's the exact way to do that. I love to hear it.
All right, when we come back, we got more to discuss before we turn it over to the crossover. We'll get some emails and some tweets, among others, from Gary and Matt, 1620 The Zone. Hey, rise up, Canada.
Well, what do they do?
We're not going to invade them.
Period. End sentence. Done.
3 of the 8 teams left in the NHL Stanley Cup playoffs are from Canada. Toronto, Edmonton, and now the Winnipeg Jets. We could have the Winnipeg Jets out at the mall at Gretna. They play in that arena.
Mm-hmm.
They're used to playing in a small city.
Just down I-29.
Yeah.
Dude, I do not
About 8 hours.
I do not want Toronto to win the Stanley Cup.
Go Panthers. Throw them rats on the ice tonight.
I do
up there
not
in Toronto.
want the Toronto Yacht Club to be celebrating a Stanley Cup championship. I mean, just that fan base, man. They are like the New York Knicks of hockey.
Oh, I forgot we started this show by slandering.
They kind of are. I don't know why
they're like the New York Yankees who used to have success and people still cover them. And they talk about them nonstop on 590 The Fan in Toronto.
Well, they haven't had success. Like they just haven't had the success of the Yankees.
But it's better when they don't have success because you can watch them in Surrender Cobra.
They are actually probably one of the very few teams where we talk about like, oh, the sport's better when they're winning. The sport is better when the Maple Leafs are losing, when you always just have that.
That's what I was hoping, that Ottawa would win Game 6. I would have been a front row seat in Game 7 to see the train wreck and the meltdown again of blowing a lead.
You know what, this time, though? You know what, actually? I want them to get to the Western or the conference finals. I want them to get there. And I want them to have the hope of like, oh, my God, we can go to the Stanley Cup playoff. I want them to have
against the Florida Panthers.
I want them to have a 3-1 lead in the conference finals and then go ahead and blow it. And it would be absolutely incredible. The best scenario ever.
We had a little incident yesterday over in Iowa City. The female Michael Jordan was there. Fans turned out.
They did.
She shot shots from the logo. Her dad took a crack at the officiating in the WNBA. And so this is a thing that I appreciate the WNBA, because the WNBA went to Baton Rouge. Okay, they went to LSU. They did not sell out the place for the Chicago Sky. You know what Caitlin Clark should do?
What she should do?
Next year, the Indiana Fever should play at LSU, not against the Chicago Sky.
Wow, that would be brutal. That would be petty.
I like what the WNBA is doing because they're young stars. They are playing exhibition games in their college home. So let's go, Creighton and Nebraska. Let's get somebody into the WNBA. But when you host an exhibition, Iowa was not in charge of game ops yesterday. It was the Indiana Fever. Well, this is where you have to know your place.
Sure.
They played a particular song that was met with silence in Iowa City. They played Jump Around. They didn't play it very long because somebody alerted them that we do not play that song in Iowa City. So they played Jump Around. It started. Crazy. The building, which there was just a constant noise the entire time.
Juicy wiggle.
The building went silent. And I guess the story that's being relayed is the game ops person for the Indiana Fever didn't have, he had no idea what was going on. He looked around and somebody said, you can't play that here. So Jump Around has been played now inside of Carver Hawkeye Arena.
Here's the best part of that. You just know how his heart must have dropped when he pressed play, and then everybody I bet he's looking around being like, what is going on?
Hey, Baby Shark, let's go.
What are we doing here? Why did everybody stop talking? I mean, that's gotta be nightmare fuel for that.
Is there anybody that would be appearing tonight at Raw downtown that would have a song that would tick people off? There are no Wisconsin wrestlers.
I'm going to be honest.
Are there any Hawkeye wrestlers?
I'm telling you right now, the WWE theme music right now is on an all-time low in terms of consistently good music we get. We don't get the Batistas or the Ordens or the Triple H's. They don't have like real true bands making songs anymore. So I don't think so. What would be a song played at PBA that would get people to be like, yo, we don't play this song? Jump Around would be one where it's
Jump Around,
period.
Mm-hmm.
Is there another song really like related to a team that Nebraska has beef with that you would be like?
Well, if they broke into the Iowa fight song, people might be a little bit upset.
I don't know if there's a real Nebraska equivalent other than
heaven there is no beer
at Hawkeye Carver.
All right, I'm looking at the card for tonight at Raw.
Not great.
McAfee will be here.
I think Jay, you'll get a Gunther and Jay segment, which will be a very good segment for all, but no Braun Breaker, no Seth freaking Rollins, no Paul Heyman. Or at least that's not what's,
Henry Rollins either.
If The Rock,
Tree Rollins.
If The Rock didn't show up to Vegas for WrestleMania, I don't think he's coming to Omaha, Nebraska.
Our future commander-in-chief's not going to be here?
So I've had this conversation with people before.
How did Des Moines on Friday night on SmackDown get a much better card than Raw is getting tonight?
I'm telling you right now, I've had this conversation with multiple people. For whatever reason, they take Raw in Omaha as like a week off. Mm-hmm. Like, hey, this is the week where everybody gets to go and see the relatives, and like we don't have the big names. Like they don't give a damn that it's like a lead up to Backlash or anything. I always feel like Nebraska, whether it be in Lincoln or Omaha, gets gypped because I went to the Raw in Lincoln and I went to the SmackDown in Omaha 2 years ago when there was that big snowstorm. I think it might have been 3 years ago. And it was just like two bad episodes. It was just 2 bad episodes of programming. So, I mean, hopefully tonight will be better. It doesn't seem like it's going to be because they're not marketing some of the best superstars. But you never know. You never know who's going to show up.
That's might have fun.
Wrestling.
So
Peter will be there.
So McAfee, I imagine McAfee will be in Indianapolis today to do his show, and then he'll fly here because it's a quick flight from Indy.
We could get a brawl between Gunther and McAfee. Because they're going to fight each other.
Yeah, Backlash on the weekend.
So that could be it.
A little bit of backlash here. Buckeye Ross writes into the Equitable Bank inbox. He goes, the subject line is, nope. So
I haven't seen that movie.
I'm going to click on it. Have to appreciate a dreamer like Trey Taylor. But a 5-star Ohio State committed wide receiver from Huber Heights isn't going to flip to Nebraska. So yesterday, Jameer Brown, Showtime, Trey Taylor put out a tweet, and it had both of them back to back. Looks like on a 7-on-7 field. And so people immediately started to think, we are peer recruiting. Ross says the kid actually has an Ohio State tattoo on his arm. Now, I think if you are a wide receiver, you would never decommit from Ohio State.
No.
But here's something else that is scary. As Brian Hartline builds another big-time wide receiver class, and he's still got Jeremiah Smith for the next 2 years.
Crazy.
They just went into Mater Day yesterday and got another 4-star wide receiver in the class of 26. Caden Dixon Wyatt committed to Ohio State yesterday. I believe
Gus going to call him Cadillac Caden.
I'm not sure, but you know who? I gotta
trying to think of Kia Caden.
But
those are expensive.
I mean, it's just unbelievable that Ohio State has been able to put wide receivers. I want to check something real quick here.
Let me just say this. They're at the point at Ohio State, and it's the absolute best point you can be at from a recruiting standpoint, where what pitch do you have to make?
Just walk in.
Yeah.
Hey.
What do you have to say to convince a wide receiver to come and play for you at Ohio State? I mean,
do you want to wear the Brutus head?
Yeah. Mm-hmm. I mean, it's just like you're sitting there, and if you're a wideout and you get that Ohio State offer, how do you say anything other than, oh, okay, yes, I'm going to take a visit. I'm going to go and talk to Coach Hartline. I mean, we're getting to the point where it's like a 7-8 year stretch now. And by the way, we're all talking about Jeremiah Smith. Carnell Tate is going to be a first-round draft pick next year. I mean, he had a really good season last year. I was super impressed with how he was able to fit in that offense around Ibuka and Smith. And he's already getting mocked in these 2026s to go, and I think he's going to have an even bigger role now that he's wide receiver too. I don't even like Ohio State doesn't have to say anything anymore to wide receivers, which is wild.
There has been a change. So Ohio State 2026 class, according to the composites, is 3rd. The number 1 class is very, very interesting for 2026 recruiting. If you are into recruiting, or if you say, I will just wait to watch the portal class. So, for example, Nebraska's 2026 class has 3 commitments. They have not had a commitment from a high school kid since Brownell committed on the 26th of November. So Dayton Raiola, who, do we need to make a discussion point about Dayton not making the Elite 11?
Probably.
Because he is not in the Elite 11. Then they got Bonwell Whitty from Sioux Falls. They've got 3 commitments in the class of 2026. And we already know that it's going to be a smaller high school class because of the numbers on the roster. There will not be guys that are running out of eligibility. But the number one school in recruiting in 2026, USC.
That's big.
What is big is they have 27 commitments. 27 commitments, high school commitments in the class of 2026. They have 1 5-star. They have 15 4-stars. I'm trying to see if anybody else has that large of a number at this point. No,
not even close.
27 high school prospects have committed to Lincoln Riley.
What's impressive here too is that
they must not have. They either have their top heavy or they may not be going up to 105.
Have they had a lot of? Didn't they have a lot of roster attrition in the last 2 portal cycles? I feel like they lost the Branch brothers. Though. Yeah, I don't know. I'll have to look at their
27
numbers.
high school kids
that is crazy already.
Is now the chances of 27 making it to the finish line not good, but that they have 27 high school spots.
Well, this is
before they go through this year and they put together the 26 roster. What the hell is Lincoln Riley doing?
Well, I think this kind of looks
cooking
like
meat terribly.
Well, look, I think this kind of looks like a zag when everybody's zigging, right? Everybody's going big into the portal. Everybody's investing in these older football players who have a lot of production. And the funny enough thing here, Gary, is so it's 27 commits, but 15 of them are 3-stars. So they've gone, and they're mainly all in the California area. They've done,
they've done major work in Southern California again.
And so they're taking 3-stars from California and taking essentially shots at some of these guys that because of the portal. I mean, these guys get a little bit weeded out nowadays because of the portal, right? And not all these guys get as recruited as maybe they should. And so I think this is Lincoln Riley looking around his own state and the surrounding areas and being like, look, we're going to go ahead and we like these high school prospects. We're going to go ahead and build a foundation. We're going to develop them into football players. And, when everybody is spending all this big money in the portal, it's a little economical in a way, I don't want to say they're restarting, but, they're trying to lay another foundation. And so I kind of dig it. I kind of dig the whole doing something differently when everybody else is, following a trend.
When we come back, his name has been mentioned on the show. He's doing a sit-down interview, or he did a sit-down interview that may pique some people's interest around here. A local figure who is very polarizing. We'll tell you that when we come back. Gary and Matt on 1620 The Zone.
Hey, your friends at 1620 The Zone want to send you to Las Vegas. We talked about Las Vegas a lot today, and is one other reason the Nebraskans are going to save Las Vegas. This time you can see country western superstar Kenny Chesney. The show is Saturday, June 14th at the Sphere in Las Vegas. If you win, you get a pair of tickets to the show, paid airfare to Vegas, and you get to stay in the Luxor. Enter to win now online at 1620thezone.com. You must be 21 years old to enter.
Great giveaway. Great show. We see Kenny at the Sphere. It'll be around the time of the NBA Summer League.
Go to Vegas again.
Just move out there. Residency.
I've missed Kenny Chesney like 4 different times. There's been 4 different opportunities for me to go and see him perform.
Well, now you can enter now.
I just haven't done it.
I think I do think you'd enjoy a Kenny Chesney concert.
I don't know too many of the
Arrowhead
songs,
every year.
But the thing I like about a country concert is I really don't know if you need to know all the songs in order to go there. Like to go to country concerts.
No, I think you'd be good.
Like you can vibe with just as long as they're good at performing. Like I didn't know, so I saw Jordan Davis lead for Luke Combs, and I wasn't too familiar with Jordan Davis or anything like that, and he was absolutely incredible to the point where I became a fan. You know, like I think country, I don't know if you can do that pop concerts as much.
Just nod your head.
Can you ever spoil a concert?
Like say what the
like a lot of people like to look at the set list from the stops before, so they know maybe what some of the songs are going to be.
But some people don't, and some people are like, I hope she plays Hot to Go, you know. And you're like at the last song of the night, and she hasn't played it yet, and you're just holding on to it. Like some people like that.
Because you haven't played Freebird yet.
See, I don't think you can spoil a concert experience, even if you know the set list.
Yeah,
because a lot of the concerts I go to, I want to see what they played. You know, if they're going to play my favorite or not. But the experience of being at a live concert, I don't know anything that would take it away. Like if somebody gave it a bad, like the 2 newspapers in the Twin Cities still do concert reviews.
Yeah.
We don't have that with our newspapers. El Kent still does it, but not with the World Herald. Even if it got like a bad review, I'm still going to go.
I think you can, because there are some times where artists have songs that feature other famous artists. And sometimes you'll get the surprise of like, oh my God, that featured artist came on stage and they sang, you had no clue. If you had like Inside Baseball that, hey, Eric Church is here tonight and he's going to come up and he's going to sing with Luke Combs, that would absolutely, that would be spoiling it, because you're like the shock of that, singer being up on the stage.
You know who did not have that was Taylor Swift, because as her tour, like they revealed secrets from her opening night in Phoenix about how the open is, and then it was shared, and it didn't take away, because I already knew what was going to happen when I went to see her. I mean, I was like, okay, they put the things over the part of the stage, and then she pops up. Didn't change the effect.
She performed for so long during that
3 hours,
where it's like
46 songs.
It's impossible
a lot of
to
Gatorade.
Spoil what she's going to do. Also, too, it's so long that it's like a longer movie. You can go multiple times, and you're like, there's still parts that you're probably still surprised about. You're like, oh, I didn't catch that before.
I'm going to disappoint everybody here.
Cool.
I'm used to it. You know me.
Scott Frost has done another sit-down interview with Andrea Adelson on ESPN about returning to UCF. I know what y'all are thinking. And once again, you're going to be solely disappointed that he does not want to talk about his time at Nebraska.
I'm not. I'm happy. I'm glad to hear it. It's kind of like we've talked about it before. It's good for both sides. Move on a little bit, and I don't want to
always be attached to Nebraska.
I agree, but
I mean, I think you have to ask the question.
Oh, I think you have to ask the question, but I'm glad that he didn't give an answer, because that there would have been some sort of, if it was negative, some sort of freak out about what he thinks of the program.
This is what he said, and this is on ESPN.com. This is their centerpiece story. Frost maintains he was always happy at UCF, but he also knew returning to Nebraska would make others happy too. Quote, I think I kind of knew that wasn't best for me. It was what some other people wanted me to do to some degree. Whoa, did that say, between the lines, did that say Coach Osborne?
Yeah.
After Frost was fired, he moved to Scottsdale, where his wife has family. He reflected on his time at Nebraska. but also what he wanted to do with his career. He said he told his former quarterback, Milton, my goal is to get back to UCF one day. I pray to God that this happens. So
see, here's my thing with this, right? So let's say he goes ahead, and this isn't talking about Scott Frost in Nebraska. This is talking about Scott Frost at UCF. So he says that my goal one day is to go back to UCF and coach there, and I'm so happy I'm there. What happens if he has great success again and they win a lot of games and he becomes the hot coach on the market and he be in big time,
he'd be more
Big
selective.
10 programs or SEC programs come and offer him? Is this for Scott Frost, is he still interested in being at a bigger program, coaching at a bigger program, having higher stakes, or is this I'm a UCF guy?
What if he chooses Florida over Nebraska? I mean, would have been different because people at Florida don't know him as the guy that won number 7, put his finger in the air and said the great things about Tom Osborne and winning a national championship.
Mm-hmm.
But here's probably the most interesting thing about this article. Nice. We'll tell you about a good thing for Nebraska football in just one moment. As the athletic director at UCF, who has been there for 4 years, it was not Danny White, who's now at Tennessee, that hired Frost. As they pared down the list of candidates, when Malzahn said he was going to step down, he had a pre-existing relationship with Scott Frost because this AD worked under Danny White. Mm-hmm. So Scott Frost, when he was fired at Nebraska, the AD at UCF reached out to Frost about being the offensive coordinator under Malzahn. Frost said he was not ready to take the job. But then when he kicked the tires this time, Frost was working for the Rams. Mm-hmm. The AD at Central Florida reached out to Sean McVay and Les Snead.
Not surprising,
and they told him Frost did anything that was asked of him, including making copies around the office. Then he called Trev Alberts to get a better understanding about what happened with Nebraska. This is the quote in the story on ESPN.com. Quote, fits are a huge piece, and not everybody fits. That's what the AD said in the next sentence after it's revealed that he called Trev Alberts. They had 8 conversations. They met at an airport hotel in Dallas, and they hired Frost.
That's so interesting because part of the reason Frost was hired was, well, he's from Nebraska. He played here. He won a national title here. He understands the tradition. You would have thought, right, from an outside perspective, this was the perfect fit. This was the fit. And we talk about Bill Moose and the fact that he didn't really hire Scott Frost. This was the job essentially was given to him because of everything that had led up to that point. It's just crazy to think about that. Yeah, you make a hire because he's an in-state guy and he knows the program, and it wasn't a good fit. And it kind of starts to make you question certain things about where the program is and how programs develop and how programs evolve, to where guys who came up in a program in a certain way doesn't mean that they're going to be great when the program is another way. And I think that quote kind of says all that there.
It basically, and I'm happy for Scott because he's happy back at Central Florida. It does tell you everything that I've said, that he didn't want to come to Nebraska. He didn't want to leave a place where he was very, very happy and very, very comfortable and very well unknown in the city of Orlando.
Having fun. You could tell they were having fun.
He said, so this is one last quote here. You're always striving to reach higher goals. I had always told myself I wasn't going to leave here unless there was a place you can legitimately go and win a national championship. It was a tough decision because I didn't want to leave regardless of which place it was.
It'll be interesting to see what happens if they end up winning again and he ends up having similar success. Where does he fall within the other head coaching hires? Because with UCF now being in the Big 12, and I understand that we're more than likely going to the 2-league supermodel at some point, but there also isn't any shame in just sticking to one place for a very, very long time.
Pays saying, well, and you're happy.
Exactly.
It's a life lesson.
I mean, I think it'll be interesting to see.
It's important for Scott to be happy. He wasn't happy here. I don't think he was happy when he stood in front of a weight room full of his teammates. and that was right before he was announced publicly. Happiness is a big thing to him, and he's back somewhere he's happy in Nebraska. You know what? They're happy with the guy they have as head coach, so we can all move on. There's a little happiness going on. This is going to ruin the thing about recruiting locally. Nebraska has added their 4th commitment to the class of 2026. Jace Reynolds from Elkhorn North has committed to Nebraska.
That's in the state.
Rob Dvorak was just there the other day, recruiting him at his home, and now he has committed to Nebraska. They have been recruiting Jace Reynolds for a while. Great athlete in a really, really good program. Elkhorn North is churning out like football players that are playing FBS, FCS. That's a nice pickup for Nebraska, which has been on the runs of, the Gage Stingers all the way to the Jace Reynolds with Pierce Mooberry and in between guys that play that position. So that is the 4th commitment in the class of 2026, currently listed as a 3-star. So Nebraska has an in-state guy in the class of 2026.
So everybody shut up.
Not going to Iowa State.
Everybody stop complaining. We got one of these 2B Cyclones on our roster now. I mean, it's a good pickup, and like we said, we expect a smaller class for this go around in 2026. But like you said, they're going to be selective in the state of Nebraska with the scholarship limits and the other connections that they have elsewhere. And linebacker over the last couple of years has been a really good spot in terms of in-state recruiting and in terms of guys who in-state have been able to come onto the field and make an impact. And so you add another one to the list there.
On the, let me scroll down here. So on Q, Rivals has just updated their 2026 rankings.
Are they in the top 50 yet? They weren't in the top 50?
Individual players.
Oh, individual players. Gotcha.
Scrolling down here.
24/7 needs to. They have to fix how they do the in-state rankings, though. Like on the, not in terms of who they rank where, in terms of the computer, in terms of like the website. The website is really screwy in terms of like it's really hard to like find the state, move down the state, go year by year.
Well, I'm always concerned. They need to rely on the people that watch games in the state that rank in-state prospects. CJ Bronow is 97th, according to Rivals, and this is top 250. I'm looking for Dayton. Is Dayton not on here?
I think Dayton is ranked in on 3. I don't know if where he's at in terms of 24. Every time I see Dayton's recruiting profile, it's an on 3 thing. Let me get you here. I think he's still a 3-star.
I'm almost to the end of the 250. That's the only player that's committed to Nebraska right now that's in the top 250.
Currently, Dayton Raiola on 3 is nationally the 1,054th rated prospect, the 71st QB, the 101st prospect in Georgia. Still young though, and still got to play another season of football.
Yep.
So,
all right.
Yeah, I still gotta. I don't know. These recruiting, they develop. They change.
Remains to be seen.
Change. Yeah.
We'll let you know.
He's going to play some 7-on-7. Maybe get a couple more offers. It'll help his stock. Somebody will offer him.
No. Have a summer vacation. Hang out with friends.
Football player plays football.
All right. Enjoy a Cinco de Mayo.
79 degrees. Light wind. Sunny.
I might go fishing.
Yeah. I might go mushroom hunting this week.
What?
Shout out Jake Plummer.
I have never been mushroom hunting, but somebody who is a listener is into that, and he said because of the recent rain, they're just all over.
Like psychedelic, or
I did that once. I thought I was on the moon.
Or like Portobello.
The latter.
Okay.
I've never done it. Something it's not on my bucket list, but I was interested.
I don't think it's healthy. I don't think that's healthy to do.
Everything's unhealthy.
To do mushroom hunting?
I'm pretty sure it's a fungus, right? I mean, they get dirty.
It's a fungus among us.
I don't know. I just know that people do hunt mushrooms, and he made it sound like I might be interested.
I went mushroom hunting to make sure that my dog didn't eat it, and so he didn't die. So that's the only mushroom hunting I've been on.
I'm going to Wendy's and ordering the McMaster.
Crossover is coming up next on 1620 The Zone.